Mike's on.
Yeah,
Stream
I'm just
started.
waiting for my agenda to load.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
You gotta keep me up. God knows what happens.
Here, you can turn that off or not. Wheels are off the wagon. Yeah, just so we remind people. That's a despicable cake.
Hey,
Or whatever word you use.
defensible.
I like despicable. Lord, this is a big packet. Yeah.
Okay, mic's on. We'll get the meeting started at 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you,
Second.
Marcia. I didn't catch who did the second. Thanks, Mike. We have a motion by Marcia, a second by Mike to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. So if anybody has any discussion items that they wish to talk about on those items, it includes our regular meeting for February, licenses and permits, board, committee, commission, and agency reports, vouchers payable, and a budget summary.
There was one item.
Okay.
The Osceola fishing team wants to put up a banner. And it's just on, the banner would be up from
I saw 2
March
weeks, I
14th
think.
through
Yeah.
28th. So, was there any representatives here at all on that tonight? Nothing? Nobody? All right.
What was your question about it?
I wanted to congratulate them.
Oh, it is. I kind of got involved in that a little bit, and they're pretty darn excited.
Yeah.
And the comment was that it took about 2 years to get a placard, a banner, whatever in the gymnasium. So the fact that they moved it one more step past this, I know there's some dads that are pretty excited. So
Yeah. It's really,
and moms.
yeah. It's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Something to be proud of. That's it for me.
Thanks. Anybody else have any discussion on the consent agenda? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
All motion. So
Thanks, Mike.
A second.
Thank you, Neil. We have a motion by Mike and a second by Neil to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, item 4 on the agenda is public input and ideas. Limit 5 minutes per speaker. If anybody would like to speak, now is the time. All right, doesn't look like there's anybody that wants to come up and grace us with their presence this month, so we'll move on from that one. We'll close item 4, move on to item 5, staff reports. 5A1 fire.
There we go. Is that good? Yep. Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Paul.
We had a real slow month this month. We only had 3 runs, 2 in the village of Osceola, 1 in the town of Farmington. Run breakdown with 2 medical lift assists and 1 alarm. Our training for February was DNR wildland fire response, and we had department officer elections. Tanner Chesky and Josh Connors were both reelected as captains. The upcoming training was last night. We had the first part of our hazmat operations refresher, and we'll be having the second part of it now in 2 weeks. And then we're focusing on our meters for CO alarms and the other one, a couple of the other ones. So it's really good training. It takes 8 hours and it's really decent. The guy that we had for it was really decent. Our 1 tanker is now up and running. The dump chute got fixed and all the assembly got taken care of on it. So it actually works now. We had electrical problems with it, but that's fixed. So that's all I got for now. Any questions? Okay, thanks.
Thanks so much, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, next up, 5A2, police.
How's it going, everybody?
Good.
Hey,
Thanks.
Good. Yeah, kind of a slow month for us as well. We generated 339 calls for service and compiled 54 incident and accident reports in February. We made 1 arrest, 2 criminal referrals, and 1 emergency detention. We initiated 41 traffic stops and issued 16 municipal citations. So, other notable events, trying to maintain our community outreach tradition. We gave a tour to a group of students from Valley Christian School, showed them our facilities, squad cars, a lot of the equipment that police officers use. We always try to cater to younger crowd, when it comes to, learning about law enforcement, and they brought a lot of kids and they all seemed to have a pretty good time. So, second would probably be just giving you guys an update as far as recruitment goes. We had to shift gears and we are looking more into an officer and training program to try to gather qualified recruits for the police department. With that being said, we're looking at people that are not academy certified at this point and considering them for sponsorship. We were able to find a recruit. We brought McCade Miller in today. So we hired him back in February. He comes to us from Barron, Wisconsin. Just graduated his 4-year degree at UW Platteville, and we're lucky to have him. So, otherwise, February 28th, your officers facilitated emergency detention for a violent patient that was admitted to OMC. Emergency detentions are one of those calls that demand a lot of resources from police departments. The process in Wisconsin is very slow, and with agencies that are below staff levels, it just gets amplified as far as demands for that. I just wanted to recognize our officers for stepping up and assisting on their days off with transports, notably Officer Revin over there, who came in, and we were able to get that taken care of without bothering any other agencies with that. Otherwise, our final Coffee with the Cop events will be held this March 21st and 28th from 8:30 to 10 o'clock. And then we're going to close it out for the season. So just want to say thank you to Dick's Fresh Market and Caribou Coffee for hosting, and as well as everyone else that stopped over. It's been a really fun event and can't wait to do it again this fall. So any questions?
Yeah, how'd you navigate through this emergency detention? And just walk us through this, how you facilitated make
Sure.
this happen.
Well, I was the one that initially handled it. It was right at 8 o'clock in the morning, about the time when I start. So went over there, handled the situation. We're able to get the guy, sedated and calmed down. And from there, we always reach out to Northwest Connections, which is the Wisconsin mental health line in this area. From there, we share information as far as, if they had a history with this person, what the behavior was, and then we work together to determine if an emergency detention is necessary.
Yep.
Oftentimes, a lot of folks will want to get help voluntarily, which will, kind of divert it away from forcing them. Other times, it's necessary for us to place a hold on them. And from there, it's a very long process of Northwest Connections and the hospital that we're at for medical clearance to reach out and find a treatment facility for folks that need mental health treatment. And that process often takes hours. Winnebago is kind of the last hospital on the line, but they're required to take everyone. So if the person has been using drugs or alcohol or too violent, oftentimes they have to go to Winnebago, which is about a 4.5-hour drive from here. So usually it's about 6 to 8 hours waiting at the hospital trying to facilitate it, and then another 9 or 10 hours on the road and getting them admitted to get help. So that's pretty much what happened on that day as well.
So you wound up, one officer was only the one doing the transport at that time?
Yeah, how we facilitated was I pretty much stood by with the patient until we had some sort of plan or an indication where they were going to be going for treatment. And then usually what we do is we try to get an ETA of when they're going to be ready for discharge. And we try to time it out where if I have to call in an officer who's not working, for them to come in about the time they'd be ready to be transported. That way we minimize downtime and just get the person going. So
what about the next shift after you're done? Now you have an officer stepping in. What's gonna happen then? Was there,
Traditionally, like if we have a fully staffed department, oftentimes if officer that won't come in for overtime or can't, it'll pretty much transfer over to that next shift. So once they check on, they'll pretty much take over where the other officer is, and hopefully they'll be in a place where they can get dropped off before reasonably when the officer is supposed to be done with their shift.
it causes a lot of pressure on the police department. And it's a lot of extra details to go through.
Yes.
When you're short-staffed. And, you know, we have to continue working on that to fill those slots, so.
Yeah, luckily we have a pretty good crew who understands being flexible is, you know, an asset right with us right now. And hopefully in the future, when we get everyone trained up and we're back up to normal, it'll lighten the load a little bit.
That'll help.
So you had to transport, in this instance, you transported this gentleman to Winnebago, and then are we responsible for picking him up?
No,
So he's got to figure his own way.
correct.
Okay.
Anything else?
But there is a follow-up to that, though, is also they may have to appear to, if they go in after their 72-hour hold, they got to appear before a judge. And they may be extended time after that, but the officers involved too have to be, you know, they have to be ready to appear in court too, so there's more time. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think our area plays a big role in that. You know, the closest area that would have a facility that can treat someone is Eau Claire, maybe Wausau. But most of these facilities are going to be on the eastern side of the state where there's bigger cities essentially. So it makes it a little bit more challenging for rural communities.
Been a big problem for years.
Yeah, yep. You know, it's always been one of those calls where, you know, we're glad we can help, but you better grab a chair because you're going to be there for a while.
Yeah.
So, all right, thanks everyone.
Thanks, AJ.
Thank you.
Okay, 5A3, Public Works.
Evening, everyone.
Hey, Todd.
Todd?
Yeah, so it was the busier of months this winter, multiple snow events. Felt even busier given the high winds and the snow continuing to melt and freeze. So our focus mostly for February was the freezing thaw and removal of snow. We also hit tree trimming very hard, especially with some of the species that we must get to during their dormant stage, including like the oaks downtown, things of that nature, making sure we get to them before they come alive again, potentially sooner than later, given the weather we've been having. Worked hard with the DNR engineers and resident to resolve an aquifer issue affecting Village of Osceola right away. Put a considerable amount of time into that. On top of that, we solidified the Bravo Street sweeper purchase, so that's done. They met our demands in making sure that everything was replaced appropriately in the way of parts. And we finally procured it. So we look forward to probably very soon, depending on the weather, it'll be out on the streets. So we look forward to that. On top of that, we hauled snow from several locations, given the thawing, melting, to where it will not create any public safety hazards. As far as parks, unfortunately, well, I guess this morning the ice skating rink was actually in tremendous skatable shape, but we've kind of stopped maintaining it, that i.e. flooding it and taking care of it on a daily basis. Only because the weather's really not allowing it to. Work continued on the picnic park space on the bluff when time allowed. And then we focused, as we do every February, on the burning of brush piles and invasive species. We have one very massive one at the airport that we attend to every year. And then we also have small spot locations where we're removing invasive species piling, trying not to drag them around and burn them in place. As far as building maintenance goes, just wrapped up procuring cleaning supplies for the year. That Public Works, we identified multiple HVAC VFDs that are not responding or failing, creating some unreasonable temperatures, primarily in the upstairs location. So as I mentioned here, March 13th, Thursday. We look forward to getting those resolved. Any questions?
I got a couple.
Sure.
I see there's a couple, at least two event permits in here for First Avenue. It's been a while since I paid attention to that. Is that all resolved with access with the businesses down there?
First Avenue?
Yeah. I remember in years past, there's been concerns about blocking it off and access and who has parking and who doesn't. Is that
Sure.
all resolved? Everybody happy?
As far as winter standards?
No, during the events.
Oh, during
Sorry.
events.
Yeah. So like, I think Rhubarb Fest and summer event or something, they both talk about blocking off First Avenue.
Yeah, we haven't had any real general complaints during those events.
It's been a few years since I paid attention to it, so I guess I'm just asking. It sounds like everything's resolved and everybody's happy and
Seems like everything in the community and the downtown are working together to make these events a success and utilizing private and public
To
parking.
answer your question, I haven't received any complaints since I've been here regarding that.
okay, maybe I'm going off of memory. I just couldn't remember where it was at. So I saw there was a bunch of cones out.
Today?
Today, this morning.
Yeah, yep.
Were you sweeping?
No, actually, we removed all lighting decorations at this
Oh,
time.
okay. So it was lift access or something.
Yep, yep.
Got
We
it.
were able to take down all 48 of our decorations, including the banner over the lit up banner or display, I should call it, I guess, over the road, to make room for the banner that's incoming for the for the fishing contest winners, and kind of get a jump. As soon as we generally wait till May to make our full transition, make sure our flags are up before Memorial Day, and then we also change out our winter banners to summers along each individual pole. We're just kind of periodically breaking things down. It doesn't feel very winterish, so we did remove our lighting decorations at this time.
Sure. There was most of the winter, there was a road construction sign downtown that I think was protecting a bad grate around a tree.
I have reached out to the owners on a number of occasions. So that was installed when the state was doing some inspections on the bridge on 243. The sign company installed it, and
Oh, so it doesn't have to do with that grate on the
it
tree?
doesn't. No, it
Okay.
doesn't. But I'm glad you brought that up because that is something that we're going to be looking forward to very soon in assessing and fixing, because we can see some.
That one definitely jumps out more. I thought maybe that was like the visual deterrent so people didn't trip on it.
No, they're presenting themselves, especially right now, given the thaw.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is something that is at the top
Says
of our
safety
list.
signs.
It is safety signs, yeah.
Call up the guy and say, come get your sign.
I tried twice, unfortunately, but
He just relocated. I don't think he'd care.
I think we are going to relocate it at this time.
Which then actually leads into the next one. I don't know if it's a question for you or maybe even Devin, but when's the cycle for obstruction permits?
That's a historic preservation committee, and generally they're received in April and they're voted upon by the HPC in May for approval in June,
Come
right?
to us in June, yep.
And then we'll push that forward to the full board. to make
So
sure.
those will be before the board in June, for
Yeah.
the June meeting.
Because I think one of the criteria is like a 3 foot or 4 foot access. And it was interesting because between that sign and some other items next to it, there wasn't that 3 to 4 foot access,
You're correct.
which is one of the problematic things that I was thinking. It seems odd that that permit cycle is midsummer when all of that stuff starts about now. So I don't know if it's just when people started applying, or is that the normal?
I have no history of that,
Okay.
of the start date of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's June to June.
And if they prepare, some people don't, go out of business or change their business and they want to put stuff out. Everything starts before June, before the.
Well, I know they start breaking the rules before
Well,
June, and
yes,
then we remind them, and then we
Well,
remind them they need a
it goes
permit.
from June to June, right?
Sure.
So they're not really breaking the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I didn't know if it was a tied question or not, so. Okay, I'm out of questions. Well, I feel like it might end up in his enforcement when they start to violate it, so.
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of those where I remember ending last season talking about signage and where people can put things and following the rules. And now here we are at spring. This is about the time that I think about putting my own stuff outside on my patios.
Yeah.
It's the same thing downtown.
Yeah.
But if the permit cycle isn't here and Wyatt's not here to listen to me make this comment, it's like it falls on you to remind people, to your point, that that permit was pulled last year. Please follow the permit you pulled last year. Don't try to create something new.
Right.
This is not on the agenda.
I'm okay with the conversation.
Thanks, Marcia.
Yeah. I'm
Marcia-
asking about his.
Marcia's right. We're not on an agenda item or a reported
Or on the
item.
report topic.
Asking a question about a sign downtown.
Yeah.
We understand, but you can't discuss items that are not on the agenda because the public has not been sufficiently notified of the topic.
All right. Anything else?
Thanks, Todd.
As a point of clarification, was your issue of the hold and the transfer, does that not fall under that same question?
The what?
Well, that was discussed in the police department's monthly report.
Well, Rick's on vacation, so he's next, right?
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm a little foggy here, as you can tell by my voice. I still haven't shaken my laryngitis. Yeah, Rick's on vacation, so I've been working closely with Rick a lot in the last month regarding his water main project, which he'll be voting on tonight, and then also with his water DNR memo that went out to the whole village too, as we worked on that together to make sure that people were informed of why that memo went out. The water utility is currently working hard to get to monthly billing at some point this year. At this point now, we'll be looking around Q3. Monthly billing will help people budget their utilities properly and also even our cash flow for utilities. So we are looking forward to that change, and also decreases man hours for finding out the rates too. Like I said, the water main project is looking to be a go, and that is the water main from the Bluff Tower. Eric will be here tonight to go further into detail on that. And then the sewer utility, they're still working on the plan for the water treatment plant. The UV system was serviced for 2025, and then they've been working as they can as the snow's been off, getting their data points and manholes GPS for their software, which some of you have seen, some of you haven't, but if you haven't, Rick loves talking about it, so just ask him about it anytime you want. And that's really the update for Rick. Any questions that you have that I might be able to answer?
We're still having Eric get up and to talk, right?
Yes, when it comes to the water main project, yes.
Okay, thanks, Devin. We'll move right from there to 5A5 library.
Good evening.
Diane.
So I began the third of 4 classes I'm taking for the Grade 2 Library Director Certification. The class is the Organization and Management of Collections, and by the end of the class, I will have created a collections policy for the library. The big success for the month was having IFLS accept our 2024 annual report and send it off to the Wisconsin Department of Instruction. In February, we had 3,377 items circulated, 110 public computer uses, 1,452 ebook checkouts, and we had 19 new patrons. We also added 125 items to our shelves, and I began the annual weeding of our collections. So weeding is important to keep the collections fresh and to free up space for the new materials that are added each month. And in this process, I create a report that lists items that have not been checked out in the past 3 years. Not all items on that list will be removed from our collection, but they are considered for removal. For books, I'm also looking for items that are what is referred to as musty or misleading, ugly, superseded, trivial, irrelevant, or can be obtained elsewhere. And consider anything that fit into those categories for weeding as well. So it's a months-long process that I try and fit into slower times of each month. Most weeded items will go to the Friends of the Osceola Library for consideration for their book sale. Regular programs that the library hosted in February included Storytime, Lego Club, Get Lit Book Club, WMPL Book Discussion, Chess Club, and Lunch with the Librarian. I took items for checkout to both Millside and Evergreen Apartments. And then during the adult winter reading program, I try to hold a special adult program each month. So in February, the library hosted Wanda McFagan, who is the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the St. Croix Tribe, She shared the history and culture of the tribe with almost 80 people that attended that program. On February 18th, the library was closed for staff training. And during that training, we focused on readers advisory and patron confidentiality, as well as reviewing some of the library procedures. I also hired Johanna Basil for the library page position, and she is very excited to join our team, and we're looking forward to having her help us keep our shelves in order and also with programs for youth age 12 to 18. So a few upcoming events. Tomorrow, we have book bingo. During spring break, we try to have a few extra programs for kids. So that's part of that. We also will have chess club, puzzles and pizza, which is on Friday, is another spring break event, lunch with the librarian, story time, Lego Club, author event with Jim Lammers, who has a new book out on lighthouses of the Great Lakes, and then the WMPL book discussion. Any questions?
Yeah, just one. The policy, the collections policy is, and then you mentioned collections, so you have to you're updating a policy for
Yes,
collections?
yeah. So part of the class is developing a policy that we would be able to implement. We already have a policy, but I would probably be adding or changing things that need to be updated in that.
Okay. And I see that it's an abbreviation is musty. It's not old books, right?
It's not just.
We don't
musty
need any
books.
musty old library books.
No, so occasionally they are, but that's when they go.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
How many books do you weed out in a year? Like what's your turnover, what's turnover look like for a collection of our size?
You know, it really depends. So I just did the audiobooks on CD, which people aren't checking out like they used to because no one has CD players in their cars anymore. So it was a lot. I can't give you an exact number, but it's, we had one of our big carts and that was completely full of audiobooks. I can tell you I did large print already this year and I only pulled 43 books out of large print. So it just kind of varies.
So the audio books now, I mean, what do you do then? Are you gonna keep it or what if it comes back? That's.
Yeah, so the ones that are going away are all ones that have not been checked out for at least 3 years. And we hadn't weeded since we moved in here in that section, mainly because we had room. And I was like, no, we just need to weed. And so there were a lot of items in there that had actually never been checked out since they were added to the collection, simply because they were things from the Library of Congress surplus that we had people go and get and then bring to us.
Sure.
And they just weren't things that our patrons were interested in checking out. And
Right.
so it's like, well, they shouldn't be taking up our space.
Right. Good deal.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
one question on page 2 of your report where you start charting. You have the 13-month look back on circulation statistics. Should it say Osceola circulation statistics February 2025?
It should.
Okay, I'm
Yes,
just
thank you.
Would you expect that weather is the big reason for the dip in this February? Or
It
I mean, it
might
was really
be.
mild last year.
Yeah,
so-
yeah. So we never really know on
And
it.
it's 1,000 units.
It is.
So-
Yes. And the other thing with the circulation statistics with this is just the checkouts, whereas our total items circulated also includes renewals.
Got it.
So there's a little difference between the two.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so looks like 5A6 building inspection has NA next to it, so you have nothing to offer us this month on that?
We had no new building permits.
Got it? Okay.
Can I ask a question
sure.
about that? Does building inspection have to do with the nuisance,
Building inspector,
dilapidated buildings and stuff?
our building inspector strictly deals with
Just new construction?
the new construction, yes.
Where does I'm not talking about the hospital, but where does the other inspections come with,
Nuisance properties come from staff here, whether it be the police or administration. And then to condemn a building, it can be done by the fire chief.
So bear with me, and I apologize if I'm out of turn in the wrong department. The buildings that got torn down up at,
That was a raise order, and that is given by the building inspector, because that is deemed, demo is given, the permit's given by the building inspector.
so was it like a, not nuisance, but a liability issue or
No,
something?
They
or
just,
did-
they just wanted to get rid of the building.
Okay, so that didn't need a permit or something?
Oh,
did
it needed that was given months ago.
Okay, I didn't remember it. That's why I was curious about that. And then if there's other buildings that have issues that are falling down, where does that fall?
It could be under nuisance properties, which would be code enforcement.
Is that the building inspector?
No.
Good enough, I'm done.
Okay, 5B, Chamber of Commerce Main Street, or actually administration, sorry, follows
Yeah.
right after building and
It's been a crazy busy month for admin. We had a great tour with the group out of Missouri that represent Verizon for their cell phone tower. It looks like we found a place by the ball field that would suffice for their needs. It's going to be a year-long process. It's not going to be built overnight. There are permits needed. There are things that they need to do to get ready for that site, but it looks like that would be an acceptable site for it too. The lease and the building would go before planning commission and to this board too. So you guys will be noticing something that in the future. Meetings with Cascade Falls, whether we met with Drew, and then Drew and I met with the watershed to update them on the project. So we're excited, very excited for that Cascade Falls project to start. Staff's getting ready for an April 1st election. That's the local municipal election. So we should expect a big turnout for that. Staff still plugging along, given the documents needed for our audit. We're hoping the audit would be complete by mid-year this year. There should be a petition for annexation coming before Planning Commission in either April or May for the development south of the airport there. Like Todd said, we've been working with Lakeland and a puncture of an aquifer on Second Avenue. I've learned a lot about rocks in the last 2 weeks. I've had multiple meetings with the geologist that was responsible for the repair. Our engineers is signed off on the repair, and it should be fixed now going forward for that, but we'll keep monitoring as that goes forward. And then staff got to talk to the new village engineer, Eric, about some projects that we'd like to do in the future in Osceola. One of them is for a future park and what's the best use of that space and how can we fund it going forward. Staff, and then I want to say a big thank you for Todd and his department for the quick removal of snow last week. It did not go unnoticed from the public. We got a lot of nice compliments from the department. So thank you, Todd and the group.
Where are we at with the airport and the VBrock thing?
The airport and VBrock thing?
Yeah,
Currently, there's no reason to continue as there's no development planning to happen. At this point, the airport has no desire to allow access to that, so it'd have to be a frontage road to go out there if need be.
something else squeezed in alongside.
Mhm.
Anybody have any questions for Devin? Nope, okay. Looks like Chamber of Commerce Main Street has no report for this month, so we'll
Yep.
move from there to item 6 on the agenda. Other business discussion and possible action regarding 6A, review and consider approval of the Cascade Falls Phase 1 plans for building.
Yeah, Drew Lynch here from MSA to go over the plans. We had that public meeting last month, and then we had an internal staff meeting middle of February to go over the changes. And then tonight's, the plan is before you to be approved, and then to go out for bids from there. So Drew is here to present the project.
Yeah, thanks, Devin. Good evening, everybody. I'm happy to be here tonight to walk you all through this plan. I want to start with my review of the plan and open to any discussion along the way. So Devin said we had a couple meetings. On February 6th, we had an open house meeting where 20 participants gave us their public feedback. There was also a survey that was available to all village residents and really anyone that has access to the internet. There was 4 responses. The feedback that we received in those meetings, it was documented. It was given to Devin and Todd to influence their decisions. To be redundant, we had this meeting with the Watershed Cafe to review these plans as well, to make sure their needs are being met, because they have existing conditions. They're running a business there. Their needs need to be met as we are disturbing their backyard. And yeah, so the review of what has been done. Those are those meetings. There's more meetings to happen in the future. So yeah, please stay here, Devin, on page 71. I'd like to review the cost with y'all. So the previous cost that I presented on in January, I stated the cost was around $1,217,400. And can you go down a little bit more, Devin? Today, I'm proposing a cost increase. And so I'd like to review that with you. One observation that I've seen is the cost of our stairway has gone up. The suppliers that I'm contacting with, they're only honoring a price for 48 hours as the price is constantly changing. So I have been investigating that, seeing reasons. The reason is the cost of metal and custom fabrication. So they're only honoring their price for 48 hours. And from the time I pulled the price in year 24 to year 25, I'm seeing at least $50,000 in material cost increase. Now, that doesn't account for other factors, but just providing that for insight. So one of these items I have increased, the stairway increased by $100,000. I hope there's contingency in there. So there is a significant increase to this cost. The next cost I'd like to talk about is bid alternatives that I have proposed in this cost estimate. This cost estimate reflects the bid table, a very well-written draft of the bid table. And these bid alternatives are options that the board will make decisions on when we award a contractor. But these bid alternates are included in this cost estimate. So it's showing $129,000 of bid alternates that are included in this cost also. So,
Hey, Drew?
Yeah.
Before we get too far past it, so your conversation or your comment about the stair was line item 18, right? The lump sum for the stairway complete.
Yep, that's correct.
How many bids did you get?
I have 3 bids. Most of the suppliers I'm able to contact that have the capacity to bid on something preliminary are on the East Coast. So that could also be a factor. In the spec that we're writing and providing on behalf of the village, we're not sole sourcing a supplier. We are not saying that you cannot alter our design. We're open to any custom fabrication supplier from the cities, but the people that I'm in contact that work in the cities, they're not really willing to do any preliminary work or give me an estimate until a bid is available.
I can appreciate what you're saying. I'm running into that too. And
I want to just give you insight as much as I know.
Yep.
It's challenging. They say, well, why do you need to know the cost? Show them,
budgeting.
bid it, and then I'll show you the cost. Stuff like that I hear. So, okay, so I don't want to have any confusion about the cost, but I'm seeing at least a $40,000 cost increase from the last meeting that I talked to y'all in January. I will remind us about our grant application. It goes up to $1.4 million approximately. So that is my review on the cost. We can have discussion on it later or now if there's any.
Devin, can you remind me, and because I'm struggling to recall, our CIP we put in for $700,000?
400.
$400,000.
Yes.
And where are we on, if we're talking about costs, I'll just ask this question now since our minds are focused. Where are we on how we're feeling about this price relative to our CIP? And I know you were talking about trying to source additional donations or support for a staircase, where
Yeah,
is that?
there are many ways to get the funding for this project, because it might carry out into 26. There's possibility for additional CIP dollars from 2026. We can use TID 3 and TID 4 as they're both within a half mile. So you have within 2 TID districts. We also have some other available as I'm going after other grants too. I'm waiting to hear back from the WEDC grant, Vibrant Spaces grant. So the money will be there for this without going into additional debt for it potentially, if that's the way you want to go for it. You can always do a traditional borrow for the remaining and pay it back through the TID. That's probably what you're going to have to do anyways, is borrow and pay it back through the TID, not through the general levy. But we can come up with that additional $200,000, whatever it might be, 150, depending on what the grants are for
What was the, and maybe you answered it and I just didn't catch it. How much do we have on hand to spend right now?
Without dipping into an additional borrow, we'll have $400,000 plus 15 from the horse that if you want to use that. So we're roughly about 450 in on that right now.
So the total between that and the grant is 8,
That'd be about 900.
It's a match
900.
grant.
Yeah, it's a match. So it's like 900
Yeah.
or something. Okay. Our original budget though was like 1.3.
We were budgeting 1.4, but we made sure that we maximize what the grant could be. So we kind of put the project with all the bells and whistles on it to maximize the grant.
Yep.
So if things like overruns and materials happen, that we could still cover it. So the grant is up to 1.41, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, 1,451,000.
Okay. Your spreadsheet didn't show it, but your base bid minus alternates at 1.3.
Yep.
Which is still kind of where we were tracking.
Yep, and we went through, Todd, Drew and I went through for the alternates of things that might not be needed, but if things come in under, there are additional things we can add.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me about that TID conversation too.
Yep.
That had slipped my mind, but I
Yep.
think it's good also to just continue to preach how we're working to
Yeah,
fund
and
this,
the-
and that
Well, and
we're
the
doing it in a responsible, effective
Yeah.
way.
And the CIP provides some flexibility too, because of the timeline of this project. We don't have things for 26, 27 solidified yet, so we can shuffle some stuff if we need to afford this project without having to use general fund dollars. But I mean, we've also seen a recent windfall in general fund too. So there's a little bit of money there from a former COPS grant that finally paid. So
I guess where
We're
I was
healthy.
going with it too is we're still in budget.
yeah, from the original
Yeah.
outlay
And
request.
I appreciate what you're saying is that we're running over, but you're still in budget because you provided some alternates to keep us in budget.
Right.
We all know that inflation happens and we've got issues with
Things we don't control.
steel right now. Well, I
Well,
hope, is
it's
it aluminum
because-
stairs or is it steel?
It's aluminum.
Yeah, and it's all it has to be American-made products for the grant.
Yeah.
That regardless of whether it's American or not, but we're being impacted by a lot of other things going on right now. So costs are moving.
Yeah.
So while I'm assuming your bid docs will say that the bid has to be good for 90 days or something. So regardless if somebody says it's good for 48 hours, it's,
Yeah, when they submit the bids, they're good until.
They're accepted or
they're
not,
accepted,
yeah.
Yeah,
well, technically, no. There should be something in your contract documents that says they have to stand behind the bid for a certain period of time and possibly a bid bond.
There's always a bid bond on it.
Yeah, but usually the bid bond's tied to a
we
period
make it
of
in a
time.
format that they can't provide an escalation clause or any clause.
We have to stand behind it for a certain period too. Like if you wait, I have other entities that I work with. If you wait 59 days and say, hey, we're going to award it, they really can't back out of it.
Mhm.
Because the bid says it's good for so many. So while you have a vendor that's suggesting it's only good for 48, that really doesn't hold any value once there's a formal bid.
I think Drew's conversation around the 48-hour request
It's a
was
quote.
just getting prices on things.
Yeah,
Not
It's a
a, not a,
vendor.
not a
It's-
bid
it-
quote. It
it's
was
a
just
vendor
getting
too, not a-
prices.
I get it. They're, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going to move after the bid date, provided you write the right language into it.
I think the big takeaway here too is that, we had some productive discussion in January regarding the initial outlaid plan, which was utilizing all of the available awarded dollars. And we knew at that time that there was going to be adjustments happening for various things. And we also didn't, quite frankly, know where the money was going to come from because the CIP didn't outlay 700, it outlaid 4. So backing it off by removing the large, what was it, a circular
Overlook.
table overlook? Yeah. I think it provided an opportunity for us to be able to weather these kinds of anticipated overruns that we knew were gonna come.
Mhm.
And now we can hopefully work with this. And I kind of like the layout that was presented in terms of the concrete patio with the design that's on it. I think it's cool.
I feel good about the pricing. Good work.
How much access or are we actually gonna be onto the watershed?
Yeah, we will stay off of their property and I'd like to go over the plan, give you my review of it, Mike, here.
Yeah, this project is all on village property, yes.
It needs to be.
Oh,
So-
true. One quick thing before we go, I see that you have removal of existing structure. Where do we land on that?
Yeah, so I provided a bid alternate and I was gonna talk about this later. Let's dive into it now, a little off-road. Is that some of these alternates also will deduct cost from the other items. So as my base bid, I said, remove the existing wooden overlook that is at the entrance or the beginning of the existing stairs. And as an alternate, so I said do that to begin with. Then I asked the contractor to replace the top of the landing, replace the floor joists, the decking, and the railing. And I gave them an allowance. So if the village were to want to recondition the top of the landing or the overlook, they could. And then they would save money on the demolition. Or they could just continue with the demolition and not refurbish it.
Okay, got it.
I did a visual inspection of the structure. The structural timber is in good condition. I looked at the age that the structure was built. What I can find is it was installed sometime in the 80s. Structural timber, its lifespan is estimated around 50 years. So I would say, based on my inspection and engineering knowledge, there's a lifespan of about 10 more years of that structure. So we could continue it, and I believe the public would like to have that structure remain in place. But I'm doing this to provide options.
Thank you.
Provide options. When we award this project, my agenda item will be long, lengthy, because there's lots of options. Okay, let's go through the review of this plan. Can I go to page 76? So I just wanted to give a review of what has changed since I last presented this plan. Instead of a pedestrian ramp at the state highway, we are now proposing a 12.5-foot commercial entrance or driveway. So we are basically reconstructing the driveway in kind. The DOT still has to give me their comments on this driveway, but that's what we're proposing. So that was a small change. The next thing was we are going to attempt to install a new bike rack that will have some artistic or beautiful features to it. Try to capture some artistic feature of Osceola in this bike rack. The bike rack is not a part of this bid. The village will attempt to procure this bike rack and the contractor will furnish it. We're working with Main Street Association to figure that out also. We have changed the railing. The previous railing I proposed was just an inexpensive ADA railing. Now there will be a black decorative railing to match a decorative safety fence around the site also. We've added various types of landscaping along the edge of this railing that I was talking about, and then throughout the site to just provide something other than grass, which that was in the original plan, but the update of the plan of where these shrubs and grasses and flowers and plants will be. There's no trees associated with this landscaping, but some of the existing trees on the site will remain. We've created a series of ramps on the lower part of Grits Mill Park, and the goal of doing this was to save costs and save the amount of fill the contractor has to bring in to make the site ADA accessible. These series of ramps, they provided a nice transition to this concrete slab where there'll be tables proposed and the entrance to the stairs and this historic mill wheel slab. So it provided just nice transition and multiple accessible points to the end of the site. As part of those series of ramps, there's a concrete seat wall, so there will be just a border in between the ramps so that people can see some type of visible border. There will not be a railing as part of those series of ramps. We added this proposed concrete slab with tables that is in the Watershed Cafe's backyard, I'll say it. It's on village property, but that will be a resting place for many people. That's ADA accessible. And then we added, a safe, I'm calling it protruded grading to the stairs so that all users can walk up and down the stairs, whether that be an animal being a pet or someone with bare feet. There's just safe grading up and down the stairways and landings. And this grading will still allow snow to melt through it and other things to go through it. So yeah, that has been integrated into the cost. There's really no cost savings that has been seen from changing the grading. So that's that. We haven't decided on a color for the stairs, since I'm talking about the stairs. I have it written in the spec that the supplier will provide us with options and then we'll make a decision when we award this construction contract. The public input that I've gotten so far is a natural brown tone or black. So that's what I'm hearing so far. So that's my review of these plans. Does anything jump out to y'all initially?
Can I just ask a quick question? I don't know that I have a strong opinion about this, but the tables behind the Watershed Cafe, I'm trying to like picture what's back there. It's kind of like a basement entry
Yeah,
into the
walkout.
watershed. Do we have, it seems kind of strange to be putting a bunch of tables there, I guess. I don't know. It just seems very close to them and very close to kind of
That's where their trash is.
their trash,
Their
like
tra-
their back door.
It's why we had the meeting with them to understand their needs or what might be on. They plan to have better shielding from under their staircase, and they plan to maybe plant trees to kind of shelter a little bit more too,
Okay.
and make sure that they have enough signage to know that they're entering public space now. This is no longer watershed space.
Yeah.
So people will know not to bring alcohol into the public park, that
Okay.
the alcohol has to stay on the site of the watershed. So it's part of the reason why we met with them, to make sure to tell them what we're seeing and what they need from us too. Because it's kind of, we know we're right in their backyard.
Yeah. And during that conversation, they knew that these tables were contemplated and that.
Oh, yeah, and they had no
Communicated with
problem
them.
with them whatsoever.
They're
All right.
excited.
That's good enough for me.
True.
Very good.
Is the only light fixture the one on C301?
There's a lighting fixture proposed at the beginning of the stairs, and then we are reconstructing the one at the beginning of our driveway here. Then I have a bid alternate to bring conduit and lighting all the way down to the end of the stairs. But it's broken up into the,
I'm gonna hope we don't accept that alternate for that one lone light fixture doing nothing at the bottom.
Yeah.
Unless somebody from the fire department says that there's some outlet they're gonna need for something down there.
yeah, there's some costs associated with that light fixture. It's number AA7.
Mike, I will say that one need for the light that would allow is an outlet down there to help Public Works maintain the site.
Yeah, if it's some, okay, and I mentioned fire or whatever, but yeah, if it's something for Todd, then I'm on board with it. It's a good avenue to get it down.
Because it would have an access to an outlet on the
What
line.
is our, do you actually own the street lighting along there? Is that your facilities? What do they run at? What voltage?
480.
Okay. So where are we gonna get the outlet from?
Well, so we do have it split at our outlets on our existing streetlights, that's at 120.
So you're running two circuits through there.
Correct, yes. In the downtown area, which will.
That's my wheelhouse. There's a lot of expense there for that one outlet.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
and most of your equipment, aside from maybe a pump, would be battery operated.
And hence why it's an alternate.
Yeah,
At the
it's,
same time, so we did sort of spec it potentially this way because, mostly because of all the graffiti and things that we've had in the past. We've had to constantly bring a generator down to run.
Sure. so you just put a control power transformer on that circuit down there, turn the lights on, and you got power to run a pressure washer or
Exactly.
something. Okay. I like that idea. Now I'm behind it.
Too, if we were to look at any kind of camera system, you know, we would need a power supply for that. And that'd be a good source to.
You're missing a lot of infrastructure there then.
To power the camera.
What kind of light pole?
Continue with your thought, Mike.
To put a camera down there and to get power for it, you're not going to do a decorative light pole. You're just not going to get a power supply. You're not going to get what he needs. That control power transformer that's going to hang on the side of that decorative pole is going to look like a garbage. So there's a, I like Andrew's need. I like Todd's need. You're missing it on the documents. There's a big gap there. I don't think your budget's wrong, but there's a gap here in what we're doing. And it just seems like there's some more thought needed.
What's the gap? I think I'm missing.
In order to run a camera, if he's talking, he needs 120 volt. The
Yes.
power supply for that to run off of Todd's 480 is probably the size of it's 2 foot, not 2 foot. Now, by the time you put it in a box, it's 2 foot square.
Okay.
And it's going to hang on the side of a decorative pole.
Oh, you're gonna.
There's nothing in these documents that suggests that.
Okay.
And it's the same thing for what, if he needs 2,000 watts to run a generator down there, that's not, or a pressure washer.
Yeah.
There's nothing there.
Right.
It's almost like what we should be talking, if there's really a need for that kind of stuff, it needs to be a service down there, like we put in over at.
There you go.
And that pole down there is not gonna be a decorative one. It's gonna be one to be kind of
Utility or
utility,
modified.
kind of.
So it's a 20-foot forced.
All right, so you could
steel.
obscure some of this stuff, the cameras, all that stuff, and maybe you're right. You know, we need to get into that. We
My
need to
comment
talk
is the
about
bid
that.
documents
Yeah.
need some help if that's
Right.
the intent. If these two guys have a need,
Yeah.
Drew's got to extrapolate the documents a little bit
Yes,
more.
we need to harden up that stuff anyway. If we're gonna have stuff for the maintenance, whatever it is, for vandalism or whatever else, we need to have it hardened up.
We went from
Right.
$8,000 to 15,000.
Well, that's why we have some alternative things.
Well,
we
the
do.
8's not going to cover it if that's what.
No,
they
you'd
want.
still, you'd have to update the bid document to do that.
Yeah, there's missing some scope there.
So,
Yeah, our intent was to provide lighting and
I
there's
think
already
you did,
recept-
but you missed what these two guys were really looking for and hoping for.
well, maybe
Let
they
me
didn't
continue,
tell them.
Mike. Provide lighting. There's already receptacles along the, I'll call it Main Street or Cascade Street. So I'm just continuing that lighting system. And so we are dropping the wire down there, so power could continue.
Did I write some pre-bid RFIs?
Yeah.
Because you're missing a lot of information here.
It wasn't part of my
Nancy
scope
was
to
never asked
told
to
that.
have a new
Mike,
service.
have you two had an opportunity to talk about this
Yeah.
video idea? Or is this just kind of theoretical?
This is just something that I brought up. You know, you're planning at this stage or future planning. A lot of the camera systems that we're currently using require a continuous supply.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd throw my 2 cents out there. If we're talking about lighting down in the actual site.
But did he know about that?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I
That's-
haven't been part of the planning of this.
Right, that's what,
Okay.
that's what he's
If
talking
Drew's
about.
agenda was not including that, then I'm going to back off of it and say I don't see a need for one light fixture. But if you're going to take the time to show the one light fixture and the intent that it's going to help these two guys later, that infrastructure is not going to support what they want.
I agree with you, Mike. Yeah, concur. Yep, goal is to provide lighting or what I was requested to do, provide lighting at the beginning and the end of the stairway, so. And then there's outlets on
when's the
Cascade
scope for
Street,
bid?
so I'll continue it. I'm planning to, it's contingent, of course, I'm planning to go out to bid the week of April 3rd. I'm planning to bid it, so.
Okay.
If I get approval today, I'm planning to run an ad in the paper, this week.
Todd, where's the power where's the circuit for the 120 that's on those signs out there?
Existing poles,
Yeah. Is it in like the Mill Pond buildings?
we do have some there. We have an extension across the road that used to feed the lift station that our overlook is under. I guess the potential way to gain access, the best way to gain power is from the light on Cascade at this new entrance proposed where an existing light is. They're, when we're redoing the sidewalk and beyond, replacing the poles, so we route power there.
That's a couple hundred feet down there. You're never gonna pull 1,500 watts on a 20 amp circuit without adding another conduit down there.
Long run. There might
Okay.
be alternatives we can look at though, Drew, for some old remaining power from the existing stair line.
I can have a meeting with Todd to make sure he's satisfied. All right, I'll continue. I'd like to talk about these bid alternates because I have two questions that I would just like discussion on. So I'll just continue, starting at AA1. So I guess you could go to page 71, Devin, if that's all right. So provide 2 benches and 2 tables and concrete pads at the bottom of the stairs. So this was some public feedback that we got to provide bench resting place at the bottom of the stairs and to anchor them in so that they cannot be moved. We'll have that as an alternate. Another alternate is to provide a wooden top cap accent on the stair rail. We got public feedback that there was concerns that people would graffiti any wood that was on the stairs. So instead of including that in the base bid, we have included it as an alternate, as it just adds cost to the stairway also. We've been asked by Watershed Cafe to install additional fence, so we included that as bid alternate. Could you go to page 76? I'm sorry, I'm making you move the paper around.
Oh, 76.
Why'd it go all the way back there?
Can you type the number in?
Oh, you were close. You were really close.
Like a gambling game.
There you go.
Thanks, Devin. Yeah, there's this fence from the existing pedestrian bridge here to their property corner. That was a request that we got from Watershed Cafe, so we included it as a bid alternate. Their concern were that the public meanders down into Osceola Creek there. They were concerned about it. There isn't a fence there currently. That's why it's a bid alternate. The next one is to replace the existing landing, replace the floor joists, the decking, and the railing. Now, I'm going to control the contractor's price on this by bidding an allowance. And the allowance that I'm proposing is $20,000 to do that work. This is one of my questions for you. If there's discussion, does that seem like a fair amount that the board would spend on the deck or is willing to?
And the reason why it would have to be done is that currently the joists are too far apart from each other. So the deck can sometimes slope. I know, Todd, you worked on repairing that a few years ago because we were,
Structural timber, as you mentioned, yeah, is in fine shape. However, the supports on top, stringers, are not that good of shape. So
Yep, the decking is failing and the railing is failing. And so that's what I'm proposing, reconditioning with new timber, pressure treated wood.
And 20,000 is okay for that?
Yeah, that's my question to you. I'm writing as an allowance, so this will be the cost. That will be on the bid and the contractor.
How do you validate allowances when somebody submits a change order?
They show me an itemized list and just like a change order, and then we go from there. So
What do you,
you can change order past that with these people's approval. But it's just a way to control what we are willing to do.
so you're gonna carry an allowance and negotiate it later versus just saying add a second stringer every, split the difference or something? Is that the solution?
It's an idea. It's a way to.
If you're not a construction guy and you're a civil guy, you can say, I don't know. I'm okay with that.
We're gonna make them follow codes, Mike.
Sure.
So they'll follow, joist spacing and railing spacing. So we'll still make them follow codes. The reason I'm saying we should do this as an allowance is because if the bid came in at $50,000 and that was way too much, we wouldn't do it for $50,000. I could remove the allowance.
You
It's
won't
not-
tell, you won't tell him. He's saying, we don't want to put our cards out.
I know how change order pricing works, and depending on what your MSA's background is, that could creep really hard and fast.
Mhm.
Do you write up a narrative that says upgrade it to spec and let the bid come through whatever it is, or do you carry allowance and negotiate the rates later? That's why I asked you, how do you value changes to say, like you use RS means or you use something else?
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know
Construction
MSA's
cost
wheelhouse
estimate.
on there. I've only had conversations with you on civil things,
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
wood framing.
My approach on this is to, let's list a number that we are willing to spend on that structure. Because I don't want to see a number that's higher than that. And the contractor still has to submit their itemized estimate or change order, same word, I guess, or same topic,
Mhm.
and it can be under that. I'm just controlling our willingness to do this or not. Because if we have it here, we should at least consider doing it. And
Todd, how many
willing to.
joists would have to get added? Do you think double?
I think they potentially have to all be replaced
Okay.
at this time.
So you're tearing all the joists out and replacing them, but try to leave the decking there, which is pretty much a rebuild?
Yeah, well, so the decking at this time, even though, so we've replaced the decking within the last 3 years. That's continuing to sag because of the degradation of the curb string.
So I'm gonna sound a little ignorant. The last time I did a deck thing, I took some boards off the top and put the boards back, and I just left everything there.
Yeah.
If the boards are good on top and the structure below is good, and all you're doing is replacing the stringers, how do you replace a stringer without ripping the top off?
We're replacing the floor joists, the
for
deck,
replacement.
and the
Just bear with
railing.
me a second. Say that again?
Replacing the joists, the
Yep.
deck and the railing,
So
everything
you're
on top.
rebuilding the whole top.
That's correct, Mike.
20,000 sound good, Todd?
Well, I guess,
The railing, we've never done the railing, so the railing.
Sure.
well, it gets worse from here. You know why? Because now everybody knows the allowance.
Well, that's my point that's when you
So-
list an allowance, it's,
It's too late. It's done.
well, no, it's no different than
We don't have
an
to
engineer's
pay-
estimate either.
We don't have to pay the allowance if their billing sheet or labor sheet that they're submitting to me that I review is less than $20,000. That's what the village pays. So,
This is a change order pricing exercise. We can go over it later. I'll explain you how to make it work and how to make it not work.
Well, I just want to see it work.
Yeah.
You said you had 2 questions you wanted to ask us on
Yep.
these additional items, Drew?
that's the first one. The second one is, so Devin, could you go to page 75? It's the next page, or the page above it. This allowance for hydro seeding. So as part of feedback that I have gotten from department heads is that we should try to restore the riprap that was installed as part of the Malpellis demolition. So the restoration that I'm proposing to use a hydro seeding mix that has regenerative topsoil in it and also has an erosion control product in it that creates a mixture that bonds to every single thing. And so I am proposing to start growth down there. And this growth will definitely last for at least 2 years, but I am going to state that it could be temporary because of erosion, because of how the rock is sloughing off, and it will continue to slough off because of erosion. So I'm proposing a temporary restoration of the entire riprap area. And again, I'm creating an allowance here. My question is if we were to move forward with this hydro seeding, this restoring this riprap, then would we like to see the entire area of riprap be restored all the way up to PY's bar? Or would we like certain area.
I got a question. You talk about repairing riprap and then you talk about hydroseeding. Are you hydroseeding rocks onto the hillside?
We would not install any more rocks. We would just be spraying hydro seed on the rocks.
So grass into it or a prairie thing or a
Yeah, the main
small
mix
tree
is grass.
or-
Yep, the main mix is grass. And so this hydro seed is sprayed on with almost like a water hose.
So I know how hydroseeding works. I'm not clear on how hydroseeding would work with the mesh that's underneath that. That's already there.
Yeah, so we'd apply this product called Proganics. It's regenerative topsoil. Basically gives a seed just enough topsoil to sprout, to live for 2 years. And the idea is that as the grass grows and dies, it will continue to generate some topsoil.
So the mesh that's there, is that do we know, is that mesh there to prevent weeds to grow through it?
I don't know what that mesh is currently, what material it's made out of.
Like, I like your idea.
Fabric.
It's there to last for a couple of years, but is the product that's already there going to stop this from happening?
Whatever it was, it didn't hold.
Well, it didn't hold the rocks, but what's going to happen if we try to lay grass on it? Is it going to act like sod and fall down the hill?
I bet
Well,
it will.
It's going to grow in all the little crevices. It's not going to create.
I know how it happens around my house. I get it.
Yeah,
You're going to get weeds
right.
that'll stick through.
But the one thing I think about when I think about the riprap that was installed, it's very challenging to remove it. So it's down there. It's going to stay down there. The rocks are only going to keep going down the hill. We can start growth to stop erosion and start working on it. This is an opportunity to start working on it. Another option would be another project down the line where we would install a bio wall, retaining wall, or a retaining wall, or a building,
Terracing maybe.
something like that.
Yeah.
What was your allowance for this? Sorry, I've changed pages.
Yeah, I currently have
$28,000.
$28,000. The village could spend as much as $70,000 on this. But I thought
And
that
this
was
is an
a fair
alternate,
start.
right?
That's correct.
Are any of these alternates dependent on time?
No, the time that would be provided in the spec.
No, I just meant like, do they have to be done at the time that the project is completed?
Yes.
You get a contract window of so many days from,
Benches, tables, concrete and pads at the bottom, that has to be done at the time that the project is done? That can't be done a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later?
It could be done, let's say we bid this thing, construction starts in 25, they could install it in 26, but
Also, our grant funds run out in after 26.
I'm thinking in terms of
Yeah.
whether or not I would want to recommend some of these alternates even be listed, because some of them might be things that just could be done later.
$26,000
You know,
project.
if there's
to
an
get bid out
endowment
individually.
that's given, we can just save one of these things and do them later.
Can they be under the same grant even though we bid them on 2 different projects?
so we can have multiple projects in our grant, but the funding deadline is in a date in
So to your
26.
point, we could leave this one out and then bid it back out again later. The other thing that I've run into on restoration is the time of year and then whether or not the contractor is able to follow through with the maintenance of the restoration.
Yeah, no
Usually
doubt.
there's an extra watering thing.
Mhm.
And if this project finishes fall, in
September, you know.
September, that's a great time to get it going. But I'm still confused with that mesh there. And is that a good time to do it, or do you wait to put it down in the spring, but then does it fall on Todd to keep it
That
watered?
was my time question.
We have a year warranty on all work done on this job. That could provide them to come back and redo it. I've
It's
had
not even a
contractors
redo, but
redo it.
sometimes it's just watering it to keep it going,
Mhm.
to get it established, and that means sending a contractor from potentially out.
Yeah.
For a hose across Main Street from the pond.
Oh, perfect. That's what we need.
Be good LG infested organic water.
I'm partial to the idea of, I'm curious what numbers you get back on replacing the current overlook, because I kind of feel like, we're going to be removing those old stairs. I agree with you that there's interest in maintaining that overlook to an extent, and if there's life that remains in the structural supports to it, if there's an opportunity to fold that into the project, I would subordinate that. I think it's properly listed as an alternate relative to the rest of the work that we want to do. But of the alternates that we have discussed, I am most interested in that one. just as a statement of my opinion on what feels like an appropriate thing for us to be paying attention to. And if there is an opportunity and room in the final project to do it, I think that would be the one that would be on the top of my list.
So out of all these items, there's a spec narrative that's gonna support each one of them except for possibly was there one allowance here?
2 allowances.
Every single item.
Oh, sorry, A6 and A4, double A6, double A4 are both allowances that you're gonna say, just carry these.
Every single item on this list, Mike, I either have a standard spec or MSA has already written a spec, or I write a special for it. And I name anything and whatever needs to be done. So as part of hydro seeding, I could make them water it 4 times, if that's
So
something.
you could turn that from an allowance to a spec.
I do have a spec about it, but I still give them an allowance.
Not
Saying-
to exceed.
I'm saying this is the
Yeah.
rules you have to follow, but this is
Yeah.
all we're gonna pay.
Yeah, If
because
you want to
it
do
goes
this,
above
you just have to tell us it
we're not
won't
doing
exceed
it.
this much, right?
I understand how allowances work better.
Drew, are you asking us if we want to remove these alternatives before going to bid?
Nope, I'm not. I'm just, I'm checking with you. I'm asking for discussion about the cost, making sure that y'all are willing to pay for the cost I have
Well, this
listed
is your
here.
budget.
Mhm.
It's not even necessarily, are we willing to pay this? They could come in either way, with the exception of AA4 and AA6, where you have a fixed number.
Yep.
Because you're telling them to carry it.
That was my
Whether or not
point to
there's a-
Marcia, is these 2 allowances. I wanted a discussion about the cost here. Make sure we're comfortable putting village dollars into those items of this amount.
I'd
Because,
really love to see you turn them into a planned spec situation and not an allowance personally. Because again, I know how changes work.
Okay.
And I feel like you guys could do it, you're a decent engineering firm. You ought to be able to write up a narrative or throw together a plan that supports how to fix both of them correctly.
Yeah.
I would,
no doubt.
I'll give you a props if you can figure out what will actually work for the hydro seeding and make it actually grow.
Yeah.
Because that's a challenging hill either way, but
Very steep. Yeah, until it's a walkway or a building. Can try to start growing something there. So,
it's gonna be challenging for sure.
um,
And I'm sure at the end of the day, somebody won't like it, so.
I feel like we still need discussion on the dollar value for hydro seeding unless I'm gonna remove the allowance. So,
I'm in favor of removing the hydro seeding project. I don't think that it's sufficient to cover what needs to be done. And to Mike's point, I don't think it'll be successful.
Mhm.
Either put more money at it or pull it off.
You can bid it out and just see where it
Exactly.
goes and then
That's,
just decide.
that's where
that-
I'm at with that.
So I'm almost on the same page as you. I say just write a spec and bid it out and see what
Yeah.
happens, and then we decide. Maybe somebody comes in with it, and I don't know what your narrative says. I'm not a green guy.
Mhm.
If it comes back at 15,000 and the narrative that you written looks phenomenal with
Yeah.
maintenance for 2 years
win-win.
and watering, then it's a win.
And to speak to the other one, I think that 30 would be a safer number for the overlook.
And I would rather see that turn to a plan spec too and just let it bid out to get it right. Or it ends up back in Todd's court and he's got a Band-Aid.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Does that extend the time that you go to bid process if those
No.
requests are made?
I have the specs ready for these, telling the contractor what to do.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna change this word allowance.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So, no problem, easy. Okay,
So remind me when this goes out for bid again?
3
if I get
weeks.
board approval on it tonight, I'm
3
going to
weeks.
bid it on April 3rd,
Okay.
or the week of it, because people, timeline. Good to always change. But the week of April 3rd, then I will be at the April meeting to talk to you all again about awarding a contractor the results, my review. So.
Yeah.
So I just talked about the dates. I appreciate it, Mike. That was the last thing I had to talk to you about. Appreciate our discussion. If there's anything else I could do for you, you know where to reach me. You got my email, phone number. I'll follow up with Todd.
Is the
Yeah.
expected board action on this to approve?
Yes.
Okay,
Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the,
Thank you, Van.
With the 2,
yes,
we're gonna keep them allowances or we can keep them?
No, rewritten as spec.
right.
Okay. Just
That's
make sure.
part-
that's
Yeah,
the
that's
motion.
part of the discussion.
Yep.
So.
Okay.
Is there a second on Van's motion?
I'll second.
Can we have one discussion at this point? And I'm gonna say the same thing in the next engineering review. there's stuff missing here. I don't feel comfortable. I'm gonna approve this. I'm gonna vote for it, but I think we could do a better job of getting the documents a little bit further along and catching some of these little things.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm getting the date jammed down my throat. So I'm done.
Okay, we have a motion by Van and a second by Neil to approve the plan as presented with discussion consideration. Any discussion on the motion on the table? Or on the floor, I should say? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Drew.
Item 6B, Department of Public Works 2425 Pulverize and Pave Project.
Yeah, this is a continuation from the 2024 project. Find the funding for it and make it cheaper. Hopefully.
And so bids, RFPs went out late. 2024 numbers came in extremely high, so we're rebidding these roads again for pulverization and paving. Things are expensive still. So what we recommended is slashing the 3rd Avenue north of the railroad tracks. From this, came in at roughly somewhere around $130,000+. So what we're attempting to do here is to get the base bid, 4th Avenue Hill Street, alternate 2 Gerald and Marvin Main Street, alternate 3 Gerald Street driveway, alternate 4 Okie Park parking lot. The numbers are high, so I'm sort of requesting here in order to get these things done is to take our 2-year CIP borrow, sort of combine them to get the paving and pulverization done, which is going to leave us with not much for leftover funds for maintenance for 2025 in the form of chip sealing or any micro scrubbing, crack filling, things of that nature, but it will leave us enough to get some headway in the maintenance department.
Was there more than one bid?
There were 2 bids.
Albrightson and who?
Us.
Page 103.
Yeah, and Albrightson came in lower with all of the alternates factored in. Is that-
Yes.
Is that how
Sorry,
it
I
works?
was on 101.
Yeah, the bid opening was last Thursday. And those are the 2 received from Stantec.
Kudos to whoever published it or wrote the spec or whatever, because it's nice to see when numbers are really close. It means that everybody's seeing the same thing and nobody's.
So the recommendation is to go to Albrightson, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
And to skip 3rd Avenue at this point.
Just
Based
the
on price.
section,
Section
Just
north of the railroad
section north
tracks.
of the, yeah, railroad tracks.
Alternate 1.
like that flat section.
I only put it in there right at this time so that we could get a good analysis of what it would take. It's currently in our 6 to 10 year illustrative CIP plan with an $800,000+ projects that includes potential sidewalk and more. However, this was just trying to sort of get numbers or the potential to have it repaired into a state that's going to get us by for the next 6 to 10 years in its current condition.
Maybe I'm being dense. I'm looking at page 103 on the map.
Mhm.
And so what you are suggesting this work would complete is everything highlighted in red,
No, it's everything highlighted in red minus B.
minus B. Okay,
Yes.
yes. So can you help me? Is that coming from the view that that is like, how do we weigh the condition of the road and the amount of traffic that that road supports when we're making this decision? How should we think about that?
In leaving B out.
Yeah, and not
3rd,
doing B.
I think because ultimately of the discussions we've had in the last 10 years and what 3rd Avenue could and should potentially look like in gaining pedestrian access from the industrial park and beyond and connecting outside of Seminole being your access to the downtown area, incorporating 3rd and doing something considerably more dynamic. And we've shown that in our current illustrative CIP plan. This would sort of be putting a Band-Aid, I guess, what you could say, on where it's currently at. We have a wetland on the north side, steep embankment on the south side of 3rd, and just sort of searching at this time at a potential low-cost solution to get us to that 6 or 10 year timeline.
So Todd, in crib notes, what you're saying is there's a better plan for Third Avenue. Let's not waste the money now.
Yes, $100,000 Band-Aid now isn't worth it. Let's do $1 million
Yeah,
road
it'll be a
reconstruction
it'll be a
later.
reconstruct.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Let me, I want to ask a question about alternate 4. E,
Yes,
it says it's a parking lot and it's showed not on the drawing as a street.
It's the parking area of,
It's the one out
it's
there by
the new
skate
parking
park.
lot we just made for the skate park.
Yeah,
It's,
there's no asphalt there currently, right?
no, it
Correct.
was graded to road conditions last year, being ready for asphalt. So
This is phase 2.
Let it settle.
Sure. Are we,
Is the old, is the old parking area going to remain gravel?
It's actually kind of paved.
yeah, we're actually connecting.
Breaking down into gravel now, yeah, but
Yeah, we're actually connecting 4th and 6th to the streets. So there's going to be a very small space of the remaining gravel to the east
Uh-huh.
of this new parking lot. And we've worked and talked in committee meetings at what the future holds for that space.
okay.
So we're going to intend on taking that and making it going green right away.
Got it, okay.
And then with the addition of this parking lot and the existing asphalt road, there's even potential, working on a couple grants this year, that we can utilize that existing road and pavement in maybe getting in some pickleball courts or something like that, depending on the grants coming through.
Yeah, okay.
So help me, is that where we're dumping snow down there?
No, not yet.
We currently are right now. Yes, we do have a little bit of snow there.
Just a tiny pile. The big one's in the Braves parking lot.
Yeah, I get it. My question is are we paving something that we're using and it's gonna hurt the road later?
Nothing that's gonna hurt the road, no.
You're off to that square to the right,
Mhm.
northeast corner of that E area. That's where you're dumping, or you're planning on dumping the snow.
Correct, yeah, in the future, that is one of the downtown push routes for holding snow.
So alternate 4, or I'm sorry, alternate 1, which was Third Avenue, was pulled because the other alternates with the base bid all fit together to come in under this current CIP budgeted dollars.
with help from with the help from a few things.
Right. Okay.
We're getting a little bit of help, and again, we are cutting into, so I mean, essentially 24 and 25 are dissected, 132, 350 for 2024, 140, which we have not spent.
Yep.
And 143.5 for this year's maintenance. We one year we tried to do a paving project with maintenance dollars, CIP dollars. Next year, pure maintenance, chip sealing, crack filling, micro scrubs.
So you're looking for a motion to accept Albrightson based on the total base bid of 98,167 plus alternate 2, 3, and 4?
Correct.
Yeah, I made that motion.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Van. We have a motion by Mike and a second by Van to award the bid to Albrightson. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0.
I didn't mean to leave this out, but it's just an add-on that I believe this work needs to be completed before the 4th of July, so that we have everything kind of ready to go before any large festivals in September and things have time to set up. So
Thank you, Todd. Okay, 6C, Bluff Tower Water Main Project.
Yeah, I'm deferring to Eric on this one.
Good evening.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. First time at this podium for something like this, so. I guess to review the project, I know that previously, when this was talked about, think back a year ago, or further, actually. So the project is replace an over 100-year-old water main that's running up to the water tower. We've gone through and submitted plans and design documents to the DNR. This is actually back in June of last year, and have gotten DNR approval of that submittal sometime in late August. And so we do have this project covered from the Safe Drinking Water Program, low interest loans. We did not get awarded any principal forgiveness on it. but it will be funded by the low interest loan program. So the proposed plan is, we did meet with some contractors and things and discussed the best route for replacement, replace where it currently is, or a new line up the bluff, install open trench up the access road, and we landed on putting in a new line up the access road is what the current plan shows. So it goes all the way up the access road to the water tower, up to the to where the trails are up there as well, all the way to the water tower, comes down, goes through the gas station parking lot, across Highway 35, and connects on the east side of the highway where the old Dairy Queen was, to the water main that's there.
And that gas station parking lot is our right of way, so there's.
Yeah, and the gas station, there is village property that's there between the gas station property and the railroad. There's actually some Osceola Historical Society strip of land there as well. We're working through. So we've got on village property as it runs by the gas station. There's going to be some work that's done on actually placement of pipe that's paralleling the railroad tracks. But then we're also lining an existing line that goes under the tracks as well. The original plans called for a new line to go underneath. After Rick had looked at it, the line that goes under it was put in sometime in the 70s. We don't feel like it's at a point that it would need to be replaced. It was simply a matter of convenience doing the project right there. Let's put in a new line. We talked to some contractors about some lining products. They've kind of come a long ways, and so we're planning to line that line instead of putting in a new line.
I'm gonna put a balloon line in.
Yeah, yep, it's a rigid liner that to put in, and it's got some structural integrity to it as well, and feel pretty good about the means and methods that can just strengthen that line, and line that didn't necessarily need to be replaced anyway, or wasn't showing signs of.
And remind me too, this whole project is currently being funded by the water utility, right?
Yes.
This is all on their budget and everything.
Yes,
so.
it's paid for by rates.
And the microloan.
Oh, yeah, the loan we paid for by the rates.
Yep.
So it on surface seems like a relatively simple water main project, but there's lots of things on this that make it a little more interesting. The back cave that's there, the DOT right away, the railroad right away. There were noted contaminated soils at the gas station that we have to deal with, and we did some testing, and there is indeed contaminated soils. How much we'll actually find, we'll determine at the time of construction. You look for contamination, signs of contamination and discoloration and odor. And also in groundwater testing as well. There's some VOCs. So just lots of things to deal with. We've got DOT permits, we've got DNR permits. We're still working on railroad permits. And so big piece that we're finalizing with them is the call-outs on the plans and specifications for a shoring plan. Since we're adjacent to the railroad, excavation, they picture the railroad, it sits up way high. And so kind of that hill that comes down, we're kind of in that imaginary hill that goes into the ground when we excavate there. And so they have certain regulations we have to follow and shoring plans that the contractor have to follow, that kind of stuff. So been in contact with them quite a bit recently, and actually talked to one of our designers on the way to this meeting, and we're gonna send some back to them tomorrow. So what looking for tonight is authorization from the board to go to bid. Actually, this is the same timeline as the stairs project, where we would actually be looking at bid opening on April 3rd and award potential at your April 8th meeting. We could, reason for the timeline, we talked about feeling like pressured into it on timing. One thing we do need to do to be able to secure the loan closing, which we would expect to be in in July, late July, is we have to get contracting completed by the end of May.
May.
So we could still push this out to the May meeting for more if we wanted to. That gives us, those remaining weeks in May to do contracting with the contractor, which is usually a relatively easy process. It's all done electronically now. We don't pass around contracts to sign. It goes a little bit quicker than it used to, but we always say tentatively assume a month for contracting. This would be truncated if we pushed it back. But if board sees fit, we would proceed with advertising and opening bids on the 3rd.
The young lady that came to the water and sewer meeting, what was her name?
Sarah
Sarah.
Arthun.
I only say young because she didn't have any gray hair and I have lots of it, so I don't know if she is or not.
Yeah, you can say.
I left her with a few things. Did you get a chance to address any of them?
So we did meet, myself, Rick and Devin, all met and discussed some things. One of the big ones was traffic.
Yep.
And concerns about traffic. So the DOT permit for crossing the highway, it requires that one lane of traffic remain open. And that they do the excavation in stages. So they can't open cut the whole road, do half of it, fill back in, open that back up to traffic, and do the other half.
Is that a standard permit?
It is a standard permit, yeah.
Because I would think that, and I hope the hair on Eric's neck or AJ's neck is standing up right now because that's the farthest thing from a normal intersection. And I don't know that a standard permit is going to solve the issues that he's going to run into as soon as somebody tries to start opening up that intersection, because you're dealing with about 4 major roads right there and you got a really bad pinch point. So one of the comments I had there was, and maybe it's a twofold thing, but there ought to be something more than a basic permit required for that, like a traffic management plan that probably takes it outside of town.
So I don't think a detour is warranted. We're talking about a couple of days of work to get across the highway.
You gonna have them do it on the weekend or during the week?
During the week.
Okay, so like between 8 a.m. and 2:30?
So
They'll have it back open for traffic?
our standard spec had called for 8 to 4. We narrowed that to 8:15 to 3:30 based on school traffic.
So 8 to 3:30 from a June to the end of July construction window?
So the project has to be done because of the bats between May 15th and August 15th.
Sure. And I'm throwing out their procurement issues, so there's gonna be some parts that are probably not readily available that are the valving and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I would actually expect the work in the highway to be towards the end of summer. The reason I say that is we're requiring that the contractor put all the pipe in up to the water tower and get that tested and passed, because we want to keep the water tower online as much as possible, so the downtime is as small as possible.
Yeah, it sounds like the cutover is gonna be actually pretty easy based on the stuff Rick's already done.
Yeah,
Isolation of valves and waters and things like that, so.
yep. So, but the highway work wouldn't be done until after the work up, so we're July, August potential,
So my comment to Sarah is that there's enough allowances in there that I feel like even though the DOT is not asking for it, just based on the other projects we've done in town that have impacted even slightly less important roads, have become a big PR issue. You could take some of that allowance and just write in a requirement for a traffic management plan. And I don't know, AJ, that if
We've always had issues with construction on that road. As long as there's a crew that's correcting.
this not a,
One of the questions I asked directly to him is, we always require flaggers. They have not always provided flaggers.
Yeah.
And that falls on the engineer to make sure that the project plan is followed. So I asked Eric, I said, do you have any problem going up to the contractor and saying, where are your flaggers? They need them out now. And Eric said no to that question.
yeah, because I don't want to see an issue with you having to send an officer down there and pull overtime because the contractor thinks it's okay. And when traffic backs up to Polaris or out to Tippy's. I think about, bear with me a second. I think about turn radius coming around there. And if you've got half of that lane blocked off, at some point there's going to be a semi problem. And you're not just dealing with a straight section of road where you're letting one truck go by and another truck go by. You're stopping 4 pieces to get any one piece of a semi or something through there. And I'm disappointed there isn't something in there. And I really hope this isn't an I told you so moment, but I feel like it would be something we could write in and look for better management so that it doesn't become his problem.
So if we did detour, it's gonna be, absolutely, it's gonna be an inconvenience when it's happening. You know,
Trying to minimize the inconvenience, I
Right.
guess is where I'm going with this.
so it's not allowed after noon on Friday or before 9 AM after a holiday, or on the weekends or holiday. So, but it will be. an
Like, let's just say if they were working on the east side, the turn radius for somebody taking a right there would be really rough. So maybe for that period of time, there's no right turn. So somebody that does want to go right has to take a left only so that you're not you can still maintain one lane of traffic, and maybe the same thing works the other way. I just feel like there's a way to write this in here now so that we can manage this a little better.
Well, we certainly could do a detour, but
It may be,
that might go all the way out to double M,
yeah,
you know?
if somebody drives an extra 3 miles and it doesn't require, doesn't turn into a fiasco downtown, I think it's worth it. I guess to maybe add on to that, adding in, I know you mentioned the duration during the day to work. I don't know if there's any reason why you can't say that the work has to be done within so many days. You got a 3-day window to complete the work on 35. And then let the contractor figure out how to do that. Then even if it is a problem and they fight it, at least he's only dealing with it for 3 days or something.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that we could do that, and so have the pipe work be required to be done in 3 days or something. You know,
Whatever's a
obviously,
reasonable duration for something like that to
Yeah.
get, because you got an east excavation, a west excavation, and then you got an asphalt pavement day.
Yeah.
And a pipe day. So maybe it's a 5-day window. You have to complete it in 5 days. And then even if there isn't a detour, at least we know that the pain's only going to happen for so many days. Or versus you get some contractor in that doesn't have a plan and that doesn't care, and they drag it out over 3 weeks.
One thing that maybe it helps with peace of mind a little bit, the DOT is required to be on site. Contractor needs to have advance notice to the DOT, and as part of the permit, DOT local representative has to be on site.
Can they shut it down if it becomes a traffic danger, I guess?
Yeah, they issued the permit. If there's something that's happening that, they're not doing correctly and it's a safety issue, they can, we typically don't stop work unless it's a safety issue.
Okay, well, you're gonna bid it out,
Yeah.
we're not gonna get it in the spec, so I'm just gonna say I told you so when it's a pain later, so. Have we worked with, the other issue was the time frame of the access along BP? Are they aware when it's happening? Are we limiting how long we're gonna shut them down?
So the gas station won't be shut down. The access to that parking on the south side will be.
Sure, it's still gonna impact them in some of their business practices, it's no different than probably Watershed.
Yeah.
We're not really on their property, but we're still impacting them.
Right. Rick has talked to him. We did talk about, making proper communication with him. And Devin was going to be the first point, and then we are going to connect him with myself and the contractor, invite him to the pre-con. Just keep him in the loop as much as we can, and so that he knows what's happening when it's happening, kind of thing.
Does Tom still own the gas station?
You sell it yet to his son?
I think he's got it, not Tom anymore. I think
My
that's-
comment to Sarah is we haven't, there's certain businesses in town that we probably haven't done the best job of communicating with, and now we have a great opportunity to do a better job here. I hope we do. You know, and if that means that we write something into the spec where it's just like the traffic on 35, if we can limit to how long this impacts them and give them a window and give them notice, 2-week, 14-day notice, 7-day notice on when work's going to happen, at least then they can adjust their business practices around it.
Yeah, it's a little, the timing I think is more difficult on that piece of it. Because of the lining underneath the tracks, because of the shoring that has to be done and the work there. And so,
SEH is a big company. You guys can figure this out and write it in.
We'll make sure we keep up to date.
it's not that, so we don't, note means and methods, right? In plans. We show what the end result is, but as contractors.
I've seen plenty of bid specs that come out with very, very narrow windows of time and execution because of situations like this. So I can appreciate what you said, but I know what happens otherwise when you have unique situations like this. And we've got a unique driveway, we've got a unique street. There's just a lot of unique things that are going on in town. So I'm good. I'm done answering or asking questions.
Okay.
Okay, if nobody else has any questions, believe we're looking for board approval of this. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by myself and a second by Neil to approve the Department of, I guess it'd be the Water Department's main replacement as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. No. Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. I believe we have now reached the schools.
Yeah, so AJ, Superintendent Stiles and I have been meeting since last May regarding an SRO position for the school. It started taking more hold in the last few months as the school has looked to, reached out to us saying that we would like a school resource officer. Since then, AJ and Superintendent Stiles have met multiple times to discuss a job description and how this SRO will interact with the school. Before you tonight is a job description, kind of what the memo of understanding would be, and then the attachment given you tonight would be the budgetary impact on an SRO position. And with that, I'll turn it over to AJ for the additional information that you would need.
Yeah, so essentially, this position would be beneficial to both the school and the village. School, first and foremost, we give our kids an officer to interact with on a positive note on a daily basis, instead of whenever we have to go there for something that went wrong for the most part. The SRO would also be absorbing a lot of our call volume that we deal with at the school. They would kind of be the first line of defense as far as taking any kind of truancies or any calls that would happen that would take our day officer away from the other streets of Osceola. What's more is on the flip side, if we have a day car who has a more serious incident, like a big car crash or a domestic incident, something of that nature, that SRO could break from the school for a time period and back our day car up as well. And personally, the biggest benefit I think that the police department sees is to have a full-time police officer in the summer, which would be our peak season, that would be at a discounted rate, so to speak. So.
And tonight we're looking for approval to continue this process.
I know we had a good conversation at the Police and Fire Committee about this and about, the budget impacts, recognizing that, we've had an understaffed department this year and that can help us this year. But then over the long term, this is, kind of above and beyond what we have contemplated before. This information is helpful, and thank you for working to pull it together. I know that meeting was last week.
Yeah.
Thank you for working quickly.
I learned a lot about math, so.
That's good.
And then this was also recommended for approval by the Admin and Finance Committee last Thursday also.
And I think I'm supportive of this and I'm going to vote for it. I think that the main thing, and I think the exercise that this new memo in particular has forced us all to go through, is to recognize that this is not without impact in a good year or two on the budget. And I think as long as we're conscious of that, I'm prepared to prioritize it. And I think it's helpful to see these kinds of projections come out so that we know where we are. Because obviously, the last couple of years of budgeting, we've been starting those workshops from a deficit position, and this is going to make that job slightly harder. But again, I think getting a school resource officer and having the opportunity to be in the school, and to your point, the summer advantages that it would offer are worth it. So thank you for pulling this together and giving us a sense of what we're signing up for.
You're welcome.
Maybe it's here and I'm just not seeing it. The school is providing some money, right?
The school's providing 73% of the overall salary and benefits.
Okay. And how long does that go?
We currently are, this is would be a year-to-year discussion agreement. But I put 3 years out before you just so you could see the impact for the 3 years.
Is it in the school's current budget right now?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a couple questions actually of Becky
Yeah.
and the business manager, if you guys could come up. I know we've made you wait a while. I appreciate you waiting, so.
Appreciate you guys taking the time to even have
I
this
think-
conversation.
Mike opened the topic and you went right to what I was gonna ask about, which was the future plans with regard to your budget building and with this topic, are you carving this out? Are you prepared for this for a perpetual? I know that it's a year-to-year thing, but I ultimately like it to be perpetual, so.
Absolutely, especially like sum up superintendent job, learning safety. That's my job. And this is a huge part of that. It is actually, because we've been in conversation for over a year about how this could work. It's built in, our community service fund. So we actually took more money there this year, anticipating we would be moving forward. And the other piece is that splits the cost for this officer by all the municipalities, not just the village, because we're serving all kids.
That's true. I didn't think there are other municipalities involved with the
Yes.
district, yeah.
Lots of input.
So what's in the budget this year? It's in
It
the
is not
budget.
in the budget this year.
Next year, sorry.
Yes, yes.
They operate off
The
of
upcoming,
fiscal year.
sorry.
versus
Yeah, I'm
calendar.
sorry, yeah, July,
The upcoming budget.
correct.
And it sounds like it's something that this community service fund, you called it?
Yes,
That's been a fund that's been around for a while.
yeah, Fund 80 is what it's called.
What
Yes.
did you use the money for previously?
Well, it's part of our kids club, pool, anything that's
So you're just
community-based.
out pushing it towards this versus something else. Got it. Okay.
Anybody else have any questions for AJ
What-
or for Becky?
Other schools around here?
Yeah,
They have-
actually, I actually had that list because, right, we always compare ourselves to our neighbors.
Yeah.
Somerset, Unity, St. Croix Falls, well, all the middle border schools, and then you go Hudson, Altoona, Baldwin, so everybody around has
Alright.
us.
Well, I know that, I
We're,
think,
we're almost last to the party.
It's been a very standard practice for school resource
I remember, I
officers.
think Frederick was just looking for one.
Yep. I think they
Does Unity already have one?
I think that they entered an agreement with the county and I think they're still working that out.
Because they can't, yeah.
Isn't Richmond? Richmond has
Yes,
one too, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Rice Lake's moving to 2. They just find it to be really effective as a prevention, but also as a relationship building and teaching staff, like, because they know a lot of things that we don't know inside the building and out.
Do we see this type of individual being somebody who can handle traffic enforcement on school mornings?
Yeah, I think part of that would be to enforce traffic in the school zones. We run into a lot of issues
Right.
with traffic coming in and leaving,
Yep.
and so I would expect that the job description, they would enforce
Okay.
the school zone
That's
traffic.
one of the consistent messages I always get from community members
yeah.
is safety upon approach, so.
And they'll have a fully operational and equipped patrol vehicle, MDT system or mobile computer with everything in case they
Yeah, I
have
think
to
we talked
deal.
about instead of just dispatching of one after we're done with it, we would just hold on to it and keep it longer. And let
Yes.
the school resource officer always use the oldest vehicle in the fleet.
Right.
Yeah, so right now, the only kind of cost as far as a vehicle, hopefully next year, if we're approved to get another squad car, we would not be recouping the money that we would use
From selling.
Back from selling our old one. And instead, that old one would go to the SRO, and then we would just have to wait another cycle and then phase out. from there.
Rotate out.
So this position has the same criteria as you or the other gentleman that were here tonight?
No, I would,
Maybe not you, you're extra special.
for the school resource officer, I consider that a more specialized position. I would want to put someone in there that has some experience, working in law enforcement versus pulling a fresh recruit that we would have to send through. the
And you
academy.
have people willing to leave departments to become school resource
Okay,
officers.
that was my question is how easy are you think you're actually gonna do to fill?
Anecdotally, I've had a lot more chatter about this position than I've had with our two other vacancies.
Do you think it's gonna be easy to fill?
Hard to say.
Easier than the last?
I think it's easier than a standard patrol officer. That's the impression I'm getting, but.
There's some extra schooling that they might have to go to
You gonna
anyway.
do it?
No, I'm out. I'm
But
retired.
we did mention that when in our
Come on, Dan.
discussions that there might be a lag in starting. It might not start right away as we might have a problem hiring. We could have a problem hiring just given the
Yeah.
current climate.
And the temperature with the school board is positive with this?
100%.
Okay.
I'm surprised this is easier to fill or that I'm interested, because if I was gonna go on that path, this would be the last thing I want to do.
Oh, yeah, but that's,
A lot of people, I think, are drawn to the schedule, having Monday
Yeah,
through Friday
it's
days.
days, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
That's a big draw in the law enforcement community, and some people, it's a legitimate interest of theirs.
It's a bidded position in the county that I work for.
Mhm.
You can't
Is it
have,
a
you
pay
can't have the
scale?
SRO position unless you bid for it and get awarded it. So.
Sure. Pay scale would be the same as our standard officers.
Sure, so it's actually a benefit because of the hours.
Partially. Yeah, I mean, in the summer, their hours may change.
Yeah,
but-
they would work, technically they work less because our regular officers work 12-hour shifts. This would be an 8-hour, 5-day-a-week type deal.
And summer or no summer?
Summer, we could flex depending on the department needs.
It's a
However,
1,200-hour a year job or something? Is that what it's budgeted?
well, we'd be looking at 20-80 hours total, and then
So
we're,
it is full-time all summer then?
oh, yeah. It
We're just doing
continues.
190. The school district would do 190 and then the department would have the rest.
What's he do during the summer when there's just summer school for part of the day?
well, during the summer, they would be we'd fold them into,
Just move back into,
yep, put them
Yeah.
as a
Okay.
regular police officer.
Sub for vacations.
Roll them into investigations, yeah.
And we didn't even budget for summer school. We just did the standard 190 school year.
And this officer would be hired and would be reviewed. Was it a joint review between the school and you as far as performance and evaluation and hiring decisions, or is that rest?
Are we talking for hiring or for?
I suppose I'm talking for hiring and for review.
Yeah, I would want to work with Becky on, as far as the recruitment. I would definitely want her input as far as someone we'd be looking at hiring. And as far as review, annual basis, we'd get together and discuss the performance of that officer.
Collaborative. Thank
And
you.
what better way to do that between,
Yeah, I would have been
And
concerned
Andrew.
if you weren't, so I'm
Right.
glad that.
Oh, yeah.
because he's
Yeah, AJ was my
ultimately has to
student.
make
He
that
asked,
decision.
so we
That's great.
I'll make a motion to approve the,
I'll second it.
Thank you, Van. We have a motion by Van. Thank you, Mike. We have a second by Mike to continue this process. Is that correct? That's the motion we need?
Yes.
Motion to continue the process of creating and hiring for a school resource officer. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thank
very,
you.
very
Appreciate it
much.
very
Thank
much.
you, AJ.
Yep,
Really a huge step for Osceola. Thank you.
You bet.
appreciate it.
Okay, moving on, we are now at 6E, Resolution 2502 to adopt an amended 25 fee schedule. So we have a couple of fees that were maybe omitted or missed.
Yes, I was informed from the police department, we no longer have all-night storage. So we had a charge of $5.
No impound anymore? Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have that. They want that taken off. And then, we had not accounted for emergency parking tickets. They have been charging $50 a ticket since 2020. And so I wanted to get that updated because we had it at $20.
Yeah.
And, what was the other one? Oh, they charge $20 for paper service, to serve papers on people.
Got
And
it.
that wasn't listed on our fee schedule. So I wanted to get that on there.
Is that,
So it's just updating stuff that the police department just looked at and.
It's already happening.
Yes,
Yes.
it's been going
Okay.
on.
So is that our paper service through our courts or is it county also?
Anybody that wants to.
Everybody.
Anyone that
To
wants
process, yeah.
All right.
AJ, I'm gonna ask you, but it was something Ron brought up, but there was other services that the police department did for reviewing of nuisance properties and things, and he had mentioned it was an hourly rate.
So I'm guessing what he meant was the abatement for criminal nuisance properties. So if we respond to a particular property several times, we can declare that as a criminal nuisance property. So if the police get called there for something else in the future, we can abate that property by billing them the hourly rate of the chief of police. I wouldn't really consider that a fee though. That's more of a abatement.
Is it substantiated somewhere in an ordinance or this fee schedule that we can do it?
Yes, it's in the nuisance ordinance.
Okay. Does everything you do between that ordinance and this sheet get covered?
Well, aside from municipal citations, fee wise,
Ron had a bunch of stuff that he had brought up and I followed it and I was hoping he was here to review it, but I feel like he really thought, I got the feeling there was a big gap.
I thought we were,
Table
I
this.
thought we were working on that since.
If you want to, you can you can table it or you can
I'd like
say
to table this. in my
approve it
thoughts.
We
as.
could table it until April.
Yeah.
And we could have,
He had a lot of
because
good
Ron did
points.
text me to tell me that he wasn't gonna be able to make it.
So, you're right.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adopt these fee changes or to potentially table
I'll
until
make a motion
April.
to table it.
Yeah,
Till next month.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike and a second by Van to table this topic.
Quick discussion. Andrew.
Believe
It'd be
the
great to have you look through
table-
this too.
Pardon?
I'd love to see you look through this and make sure everything is captured.
Yeah,
Want to get you every dollar you can.
no, there's not a whole lot of things that we do to assess fees besides.
No, but it's important that you review it.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, topic is tabled. Moving on, 6F, commission and committee open seats discussion.
Yes, we have, as you can see from the TV screen,
Yeah.
we have many openings within our committees and commissions within the village. Tonight's kind of just to bring it to attention and possibly so board members know that we're looking for members of the community to join these committees. So if you guys know people or if anything you want us to do further on, please let us know. But it's just kind of really a point of information type topic.
Where have you published this so far?
What?
Where have you published this so far?
I don't think that, it's just listed on our website. It just says the openings, but I'll put it in the newsletter.
I would actually recommend putting an ad in the Sun.
You want an ad in the Sun?
Sure, yeah. Just a little 2x3, following commissions and committees have
That's a
openings
good
for,
idea. I don't think anybody's
citizens.
ever seen it in the paper.
I mean, there'll be a little bit of expense there, but I think it's a good way to get it out
I
there.
like that idea too.
That's something the police department can afford.
So,
They're
Write another
raking in
ticket
so
and
much
we'll
in
get it
fees and figure it out.
Goes into that miscellaneous fee deal.
Yeah.
After we update our fee schedule.
And if I'm not mistaken, many of these appointments are either meeting on an as-needed basis. I mean, I look at the ethics board. I've been in Osceola for 22 years. I've never seen the ethics board
The
meet.
only one that
So-
meets semi-regularly would be the Historic Preservation Commission.
That's,
Board of Appeals has met twice since I've been here. Ethics Board, never. Micro Loan Fund, never. And the Redevelopment Authority has met once since I've been here.
Okay. And some of these you could serve on, you could serve on many of these.
If anything, it just gets somebody into the whole system of being on a committee.
yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Participation is good.
There you go. That was the word I was looking for. Thanks.
Yeah, you got a lot of people that might, be interested in how they can help the community. This is a very low risk and relatively easy way to do that.
Can't get
Yeah,
by.
I would think an ad in the paper and then, we can also, we can do our own chatter just at the
Yep.
water cooler and
Uh-huh.
other social media outlets.
And no action needed on that, though.
Okay, moving on to 6G, snow removal discussion.
Yeah, this was talked about at the last meeting that you wanted to have further discussion with this. Within the packet tonight was a memo issued from me about how we've gone about it so far this winter and the limitations that we have as a staff as staff in both departments. So with that, it's more of a discussion for board members to give direction to staff, and Todd is here, and I am here to answer any questions that you might have.
I want to echo the compliment about the quickness of the plowing that happened this past week, because I also noticed it, and I thought, good on you. So just to say that, number one, because I didn't get a chance to do it before. Number two, I think when we made the change, I went back and watched October of 2 years ago, whenever we had this initial discussion. We spent a lot of time talking about how enforcement would work. And I think I left that meeting with the view that enforcement was exclusively complaint-based. That it's not that you or AJ are roaming the streets looking for violations. It's that you're kind of waiting for members of the public to tell you that there is a problem. And I know up in my neighborhood, there's someone who has called in and said that there was a problem. And I guess I think it's good to have this discussion, given the attention that this issue's had over the last couple of months. And in my mind, keeping it as a complaint-based sort of enforcement approach properly balances your time and resources, because you don't have the time to go around and do that level of enforcement. We don't have a code enforcement person. But it also then gives members of the community an avenue if there is a problem to raise it with you so that it can be addressed according to village code. So I think I think that complaint basis makes sense to me. And I don't have a problem either with, particularly in the case of sidewalks, like I think citations probably would not quite get the neighborly deed done as much as we've received a complaint, we have plowed your sidewalk for you, here's your bill. Because then that way the sidewalk is cleared for people who apparently want to use it. So when I saw this, those were the thoughts that came to my mind. And I think it can be good for us to level set how we're expecting staff to enforce this. And so I think it's a good idea to have this conversation. And again, my expectation is that I think for a lot of village ordinances, it is a complaint-based sort of approach. I don't know how other people feel about that. I don't know if staff has reaction to that, but that's my thinking on how we should handle this.
Yes, and just to mention on that too, staff, AJ and Todd and I are meeting tomorrow to go over more policies of how we can move forward with more nuisance properties within the community.
I like that comment. I really like, because this is just maybe the pimple on the nose, and there's other issues, and it would be good to try to start to address them. You know, and some of my other comments from earlier about, you know, other properties, I have specifics in mind that I think would better every community environment. And it would be good to approach them all. Everything I've tried to do to date has been consistent across the board. I also realize that it's a two-sided scenario. It's a lot like the tree issue that we talked about last summer, where it's both the village's situation and it's the community member situation. We're both in things together, just like VBRUC's driveway out there. There was a gentleman's handshake at some point. Now it's become contentious, which leads into the Geiger Street issue on 35. We've got a really unique situation here, and I kind of want to, I disagree with what you said a little bit. I'd like to approach this as a little bit more community-based. If there is a nuisance issue, you know, it's no different than somebody didn't mow their lawn. I don't know that we're going to jump on it right away and mow it. We might give them a warning, and maybe we warn them on a situation. Because there's been plenty of sidewalks that people walk over, but there's certain community members that aren't going to call and complain about a sidewalk. There's others that are prone to do that. I don't know that we're taking a soft approach to this, because it's very unique. And I kind of almost want to take the Geiger and then anything that's part of the safe walk to school, and then maybe even O&M. I kind of almost want to approach that differently, because you're not going to get somebody that's going to call in and complain about Mike Muskie's project out there and say somebody needs to do the driveway. Because does Mike even own it?
We do get complaints about Mike Muskie's projects, and we do reach out to him and tell him to abate certain properties when it comes to mowing and dirt removal. Yes.
But we didn't do the snow.
You're absolutely right.
So, and Todd, what I'm saying is I kind of want to have a little bit soft approach with some warnings on the properties that are a problem, that are important. And then maybe we take the thing like Geiger and treat that a little differently, because you're not plowing 35 and there's a different type of snow that hits that. And I don't know that an average homeowner is going to be able to do that. Not to say
I am on that street. So there's 9 blocks of people that also have to shovel that
it's
snow.
different though with that section. That section along the backside of Geiger is right up to 35, where everybody else has a boulevard. I don't know if that's the right term.
Small boulevard, correct?
There's a boulevard that buffers that a little bit. So I'm not completely disagreeing with you, but I'm going to say that section's kind of unique.
And that was in 2023 when we talked about it. When the referendum failed, we said we have to scale back things we do as a village, because that's something we used to do. We are still looking to find ways to scale back what we do too, because Todd's department is swamped. So we're still looking at avenues of resources that we provide that we are struggling to provide.
100% agree with you. But at the end of the day, I don't know if some of these are, back to the school thing, we're willing to pull a resource officer together because we need it. That sidewalk, if it truly is part of the Safe Walk to School, maybe it's something we just deal with.
When it was done with the Safe Route grant, I think I read the code this weekend from top to bottom. This has been a point of contention for the Public Works Department for several years, for 7 years for me. It's an ordinance, which is village law. We have no jurisdiction in enforcing law. I don't, Public Works, from our village code. So the very idea that this has trickled down to us from the start, I mean, the code reads very simple. It is considered a nuisance property. It shall be dealt with as a nuisance property. And then the abatement system or part could potentially trickle down to Public Works. However, and I know we're focusing on snow removal, sometimes long grass, things like that. We get hundreds of different calls in regards to code violations. So I look forward to continued meetings in the future because, again, my job description, the code and beyond, I don't have jurisdiction to make those sort of calls.
Yeah, this ain't an easy solution, and I don't expect we're going to solve it today. I just wish, at the end of the day, I'd like to find some way of doing notices, especially on that one. To give, and even though it is ordinance, just like Carolyn Sanders mentioned, most people don't read the ordinances. They're going to go off of at best the newsletter, and the newsletter was a little misleading. But maybe we take a community policing angle and just say, hey, we're going to issue a warning on it. And then maybe we look at some of the properties and go, okay, this is Geiger's unique. And maybe we change the ordinance to say it's in front of, or we write an amendment that says that it doesn't include that section because of the unique situation behind it. There was one gentleman who was like, if I'd have known I was hung up with this, I probably wouldn't have agreed to let it happen there.
No,
it's.
I understand. The frustrating part for Public Works and this trickling down to us is the very fact, though, that, I mean, it could be a plowing, like in this scenario, 3 guys. We did the very best we could with the amount of snow we had. We put in 6 hours between the 3 of us total, including the downtown cleanup. So then it comes down to priorities the next day. So at this time, it's Public Works identify, Public Works notice, Public Works comes back and sees if this has been done, this violation has been completed after it's been noticed. Then Public Works goes and carries out the removal.
Yeah,
and then Public Works does the billing.
And Todd's also working on too that if it snows on a Saturday night, they're not free until Wednesday basically because of their maintenance of equipment and getting things operational again. So the time frame for that, it's why, as I said in my memo, I took a heavy-handed approach is because I know that we do not have the capacity to do that after every snowfall, just given what they have to do to prepare for it. because they are basically out of commission of doing other things for 3 or 4 days after a heavy snowfall because of the work that goes on after that snow.
I've also stressed on the liabilities over the last 7 years too, meeting with lawyers and insurance agents on site to address slip and fall claims and things of that nature. Sometimes the very idea of this code in itself, or the fact that we may participate in clearing sidewalks, could be a real potential issue as well. And that's why we brought up the potential for a citation only, because if someone decides they're not going to shovel their sidewalk, an individual slips on it 3 days later, they get a lawyer because someone broke their ankle and says to the homeowner, you didn't shovel your sidewalk. Well, that is correct. I was out of town. However, right here in the village code, it says that the village of Osceola will provide the snow removal process. And if it's on a complaint-based system or potential, anything outside sets us up for a liability.
Yeah, getting not being involved at all seems like the safest route.
I agree.
I didn't like the randomness of it, and then inconsistency. It's bad PR.
I completely agree. It's the first time we did it in 11 years. We did receive 3 complaints from different parts. And this was, this is sort of the lashback from it again.
Well, and every year we get different snow amounts, it's going to change. And then you get, again, that some of the roads in question are off of 35, which have a different plow sequence than what you do. The county and stuff. So it's.
We make recommendations too during everything from planning and beyond when this went in. How are we going to do this? That was our basic argument with the administrator at the time. How are we going to provide snow removal? The highway truck goes by 10, 12, 15 times.
Yeah, they can be plowing slush and we wouldn't know it.
Constantly.
And it still violates the ordinance. So at the end of the day, I don't think there's a good answer. If we do anything, I would promote a year of citation, or not citations, but notices.
Todd, are you suggesting like changing the code to remove village involvement as the best solution
I think
in a perfect world?
I think the abatement part, yeah.
But
For this code in particular, yes, but it goes beyond that as well. I mean, it's no secret. We have upwards of $10,000 commercial lawnmowers. So when we're sent into someone's yard, we've destroyed spindles, decks, and beyond.
Is it typical? Is our ordinance unique in that it involves the village in the process? Like, do most municipalities just say, we're going to issue you a citation and they're done? Is that the typical approach?
Some municipalities do have abatement done by the village or city. Every city I've been in has had the city abate the issue.
Some do, but none have Public Works initialize the infraction or identify it.
In the sense that like another department of the city is
Administration or police,
are issuing a citation and
Letter.
you're
a letter or citation.
Letter or citation.
okay. But functionally, the village is still involved in removing the snow.
Well, for instance, that snow removal, it was given by an administrator, me, to abate the properties that were no longer following compliance with the code. So he was given direction from me to go through that.
To Neil's point though, and I don't know that I want to move this to any sort of a motion or a change, but in theory, we could have an administrative penalty notice, whatever. And then if they didn't follow through with it, we could avoid him and use one of our contracting services to do it, because that would shed us on the liability too. Like we've got JNS and Redline.
The other issue under the contractors are, we have a hard time getting for this building. How can we have a pop-up say, we might need you this day, we might need you that day? It's going to be really hard to find a contract to do that.
Well, to argue that point, if it's not necessarily during the snow event and we give them another 5 days to do it, I would think that would help level out their services. And I don't want to argue the nuances of it. I think it's a good avenue to look at, because it solves sort of the problem, and it sheds us of Todd's concern over liability.
I have mixed reactions for everything, and all this is a tough issue. I had one citizen who called me and said, "Oh, we didn't do it because we were gone for the weekend and we thought the village would take care of it. Had we known it was gonna be this much, we'd have done it ourselves. No, that's exactly why it was that much, because we don't have the ability to do it every time.
Which goes back to a notice.
Well, those people knew they were in violation of the code,
Yeah.
but they did it because they thought it'd be a $50 citation, not $156. So
Maybe maybe the notice tells you if you don't do it, it's gonna cost you $10,000 or something that's gonna get their attention.
What's difficult as far as a notice, typically, I know Todd in the past has put letters on people's doors. That's usually a 10-day window to rectify that issue. With this snow plowing thing, it's a 24-hour
Yeah.
period, and unless you knock on the door and get a hold of someone directly, face to face, or by telephone, logistically, it's a lot more difficult to. get
Well, I'm not around on the weekends in the
No,
winter. If I was in violation, I wouldn't have known it till the following Monday if it happened on a weekend.
And to his point, most of the nuisance property letters that I've written in my past have been, you have 10 days to fix this issue. Whether it be long grass or your painting has gone below 30% of the house, so you have time to fix it. Snow is a difficult one as, it sticks around for a long time, and if it doesn't get taken care of, you have a safety issue on your hands. And there are a lot of people in our community that have issues with mobility.
Sure, I totally agree with it. However, there's been plenty of sidewalks out there that just sit. So we spent a lot of time on other topics that I feel like maybe we go out and between you and Todd, find out what does work in other communities and see if we should adjust this in some way and maybe have a couple of instances that we treat them a little differently.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got, how many lawn nuisances do you deal with a year
It varies. It can be up to 6 or 12.
over the course of the summer?
And mostly, and a lot of that is derived from empty lots.
Vacant lots?
Yeah.
What do you anticipate for this year? Half a dozen?
Muskies lots.
Residential, but yeah, muskies it's
Which muskies, there's no real, that's a visual nuisance probably more than a safety.
No, unfortunately, it falls under obnoxious weeds and thistle and things like that are growing out there. So it goes beyond the visual. It's
That's the one big one then, obviously, is his stuff. This area.
one, yeah. That is one.
How many complaints, taking this year, how many complaints have you gotten about sidewalks? Like, is it your phone exploding, or are we spending a lot of time about 3 calls?
Surprisingly, this year, obviously, given how little snow we've gotten, it's minimal. It's minimal.
One of the things that we're starting to forget about is responsibility. Ultimately, the property owner is responsible. The deal on the sidewalk on 35, I think we can resolve that in another direction. But if you're going to be gone over the weekend and you're on vacation, you're on everything, you've got telephones, you've got all the modern conveniences to know what the weather is and what it's happening. It's your responsibility to have somebody lined up to get that sidewalk or that driveway cleared out, and don't be throwing it in the streets. All this stuff is out there. People know it. If they're ignorant to the fact, it is their fault. They do get a warning from Todd. They get a sticker on there. They get all this
I
stuff.
don't know that they are.
And they do get warnings. Believe me, they do. People complain about it all the time. Well, I didn't. How do I know? I think here's another one. They get a warning from them and then complain about how rude they were, that they got a warning. I mean, you can't make anybody happy. Clean up your driveway, clean up your sidewalk. Quit relying on the village having to babysit you every time. The other thing is you know what? If you want to start issuing some fines and whatever else, then hire a code enforcement officer. Like we got a dog catcher that comes in. Now he captures all the animals and takes them away. We don't have to deal with that anymore. Well, if we want to enforce the code and have somebody go around babysitting and taking pictures of everybody's yards and their sidewalks and how much ice and how much grass, how much thistle, and don't let them give you the excuse of, well, I got thistle in my yard because I want the monarch butterflies to grow. Well, we have ordinance against that. Everybody knows ignorance is not the answer here. But I think a code enforcement officer might be something to think about if we want to. If we want this stuff taken care of, dedicate one person to that.
Was that not, that's where I came up with the question before. Is that not part of building inspections?
Well,
It's part of police.
It's part of, it's law enforcement, code enforcement.
But I think that that's where the reason that I articulated what I articulated about complaints is because we have a police department that has other things to do than this. And I don't think I'm not all that particularly interested in hiring or retaining somebody to do code enforcement. Because I think that, to your point, and as we've been talking, to your point, Van, 90% of this is a matter of personal responsibility. And so my point about complaint is derived from the fact that the ordinance, particularly in this case, in my view, is there to backstop somebody who is not shoveling their sidewalk. It's there as like the last resort when there is a problem and intervention is required. But up until that point, people need to take care of their stuff, and everyone else has got other things to do than run around with the proverbial tape measure and see how tall people's grass is. And so I think that's where my opening comments came about having it be complaint based. It creates that environment that by the time you're complaining, it's because you've got a problem and you are falling back on the system that's there to help you when you need a system to fall back on.
Todd, do you think it's written well the way it is right now?
Do you see, we adopted these ordinances and implement them outside of state statutes as additional laws, codes, ordinances within the village of Osceola. Now, it specifically says within our village code, under the police department, familiarize themselves with the ordinance of the village and the statutes and attend to the enforcement of such ordinances by all lawful means. That's where I believe that I don't play a role, Public Works or potentially any other entity, in creating first contact or identifying. Maybe we play a role in the abatement. I don't know. I think that's definitely open for discussion. However, in making first contact, that is not the role of Public Works anywhere in the village code.
So since we are a small town,
Yes.
I'm going to ask it between the two of you. Do you see, as it's written the way it is it enforceable? Is it reasonable? Could it use some adjustments?
As far as the code goes, all the time, the police department is responsible for enforcing the code. However, as far as community policing goes, there's a lot of stuff that happens before we get to that point. And my opinion is that Public Works can also play a role in that as far as the abatement, notices, that sort of a thing. And then when it gets to that point where it's time to issue a citation, where we have a non-compliant citizen who will not follow the police department will enforce by issuing a citation.
So for instance, too, with the nuisance properties of a building being in disrepair, I will talk to AJ and have AJ send a letter on behalf of the village saying your house is in violation of the village ordinance, so-and-so. So we've gone different routes with different things that require different abatement strategies because obviously Todd can't help an abatement of that issue there, so.
Oh, it's outside of his realm. Yeah. So I remember the one event where I saw the guys downtown working.
Yes.
So on that situation, I think there was 3 businesses, is that right?
Correct.
That had snow removed. Did you contact them ahead of time before they had the snow removed? AJ?
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yeah, sorry.
No, I have not really dealt with any snow removal code enforcement this year or anything.
Okay. So maybe I'm willing to let this, I think this warrants some more conversation and probably within a couple of departments. But that one right there, I'm going to suggest that you're suggesting that the first point of contact is the police department, and that's where you lean. And that usually it's a nuisance issue. You just said that the 3 properties downtown you didn't talk to, but we went ahead and removed the snow. I'm not sure I'm drawing it's not tracking right.
Correct. So yeah, we've discussed, it sort of trickled down to where somehow Public Works is identifying and carrying out. So there's nothing, while I do agree that it would be good to warn or notice people, there's nothing in our code that says that we have to.
Well, in those instances, I was given the property and I said, we need to abate this issue as it's a safety issue in downtown.
So the nuisance request came from
came to me and I gave the abatement answer.
So it came from,
John Q. Public.
yeah,
Yes.
somebody downtown said this isn't getting cleaned.
Yes, and I said
So it
because
didn't go through police, it came through administration, but either way, it made it to you.
I made it to him for the abatement of it because of the safety issue, yes.
And I get downtown's a little different.
We
And maybe
also
that's
received-
something else we have to address in a code. So I
We
think we're
received
gonna go
two
wrong.
others too, one from Gateway, one from the north side of town, and one from downtown. And that's why we disseminated the way we did, because there wasn't,
Yeah, it ended up in a bunch of,
Pinpoint
it was in, the optics on it were bad. So,
but again, logistically, especially after we're cleaning up our own stuff, I mean, we have a multitude, 11 miles of route that we're doing, of our own sidewalks, excuse me. The idea, generally, I'm in the machine half the time. For me to notice sidewalks that are out of, are in violation of ordinance, and then to take notice, and then the logistics just, they're not there. I'm worried about the water.
well, sometimes 48 hours makes sense, like in downtown, but maybe somewhere out over, if it's over a weekend, like I'm gonna guess if there's a snowfall on a Saturday night, a Sunday midday, you guys might wait till Monday evening maybe to do a final cleanup, right? I mean, there's some,
I know cleanups, yes.
yeah. I'd like to see some thought into this at all nuisance properties, and maybe the two departments come back with some ideas. Cause I think it could use some work, but there probably isn't gonna be a black and white, but I think we've got some unique situations we gotta address. Areas. To make it easier on you, and same with you, and happier for the community.
Yeah, that would additional public outreach and education improve compliance,
Hopefully, sure.
That's
We were
something.
given, all those properties were given letters in the fall of 23, right?
Yeah, and I think to what you're saying,
I'd
too,
argue
there
that
could be more public
Gateway may
outreach.
not have, and if they did, the current people managing it maybe didn't.
Gateway got specific letters directed at the community in itself from a former administrator, direct letters to every homeowner at the time. Now I know it's grown substantially within the last 3 years.
And management changes, and
Yeah,
I tried to buy one of those, and I asked for some paperwork on just their auditing and budgeting and stuff, and it was garbage. So I can appreciate that that didn't make it, your letter didn't probably make it either.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we didn't try, but maybe this is an ongoing where we keep reminding people, and then again, there ain't a good answer.
Not right now.
Maybe just a better try amongst everybody.
Typically, in my opinion, most of the ordinances out there are fine. It's the snow removal that's gonna be the issue, just because of the time frame we have to work with.
And with the amount of staff.
Well, absolutely. We have a lot of ordinance violations out there, and
Right.
we're on a priority scale where,
Right.
we're not gonna address something that's not an emergency. If we have an emergency, we have to deal with.
Yeah.
But typically, like, whether it be junk on a property or, breeding place for vermin,
Right.
whatever it might be, we have time to establish that notice, that contact, and work our way through it, versus the 24-hour following a snow event,
Yeah, then throw in a chapter 51 or a, mental health issue, and voila, the snow melts on its own in the spring.
I think we had chapter 51 issues over the snow.
I think it is the snow.
Season
There you go.
official.
Thank you for
There you
putting
go.
that memo together. I think it helped clarify.
As a parting thought, I'd love to see you guys come back with some ideas on how to make it better.
I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything on this topic? All right, we'll move on. Final item on the agenda is future item and updates. Marcia?
Earlier, the only reason I cut you off is if we would like to discuss that policy, we can make it an agenda item. If you guys want to revisit when those right-of-ways are discussed for the Heritage Commission, it seems like something that should be addressed in a policy meeting and then brought to the board for approval. If July doesn't make sense, then maybe it should be moved to January.
For sidewalk obstructions.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So that's,
Ah.
I just felt like we were getting into a policy
Got it.
discussion. That was
Yeah.
not
Okay.
something that, so if we want to discuss it and move that, if it's never been addressed in years and it doesn't make sense, then maybe it's something that should be an agenda item to readdress
Yeah.
the schedule of that.
We're seeing permit applications come in. That was what prompted me to ask, are we missing out? Because I know we had, there was one contentious sign and I was hoping it
Something
wasn't
that
gonna be
maybe would be
contentious
worth
again.
Just, yeah, just so that we weren't getting on a
discussing and
public
move it
works.
backwards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just felt like that.
Thanks.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Van?
Nothing for me. I got the answer from Devin about the cemetery. There's been no movement going on with the cemetery and property and money.
I said, we made our offer, they made a counter, we rejected and said, if you want to make another, feel free to.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's it for that. Nothing else.
That's dead. Deep Brook's dead. Anything going on with the hospital? That's
We
pertinent.
may know by the end of the week. I did my own research on the court oral argument calendar.
Oh,
And
really?
just through when
Going up
things
the
were
list.
posted and when they were updated, I was able to backtrack from a timing standpoint. They always post 2 months out, and they always usually gets posted around the
And-
13th to the 15th.
And as always, as
So,
soon as I found out information, I'll let the board know.
yeah, so if we don't see our case brought on the May oral argument calendar, which is going to be posted, I hope in the next couple days, it won't be on the 2024, 2025 Supreme Court calendar.
Oh.
That's the last month. May is the last month that they post oral arguments for any cases. And so it'll go into 25, 26. Whether or not they hold it until then, I don't know. But
No.
I asked the clerk of courts at the Supreme Court, how do we get notified that the Supreme Court has chosen not to take this case? And they said, we send an order that we are not considering it to both of the parties of the case.
That it's done.
And when that order comes, everybody will know right away.
No,
So are we in a position, if we don't see it, we act on the conversation of the fence?
That's,
It's in discussions with Gon right now.
yeah, that's a
Yes.
separate topic, yeah.
okay. The fence.
Well, it's a nuisance property that's just been hanging as a nuisance and we're not doing anything about it. I'd like to see us do something. And I'm willing to say, I wouldn't push the issue for a couple of weeks if we thought something was happening, but if nothing's happening,
Yeah.
then I think we turn the heat on hard.
Right.
And use all of the ordinances.
Yes, you're right.
So maybe an update next month. I got nothing that I can think of.
Okay, thanks. Neil?
I have a very random one, but I have noticed we don't say the pledge at the start of our meetings, and it seems like something, I think I talked with you about it.
Yep.
And I think it would be an appropriate thing to modify our agenda to do after we call the meeting to order. So I
Yes.
wanted to note that.
It's been a very conscientious choice by me, only because I hold a position that I was not elected for. So I don't want to change the way things are done until I feel like I've been officially elected to the position that I hold. But I intend to do that immediately following the April elections. We will institute that plus a couple other things that I think are needed.
So we've been
Between the two of
dealing,
us, we could ask.
we've been dealing
Agenda
with,
item next month, right?
You can, of
Yep.
course.
we-
you ask,
I think-
I'll.
I mean,
second your
I'm
thoughts.
raising it for discussion. If there's someone else
Yeah.
on the board who wants
I've
it,
I've
let's
often wondered
slap it
that.
on the
I've
agenda
often
and have a
wondered that.
conversation about it,
But what I wondered,
because I think we can.
we haven't been dealing with a legitimate president.
Appointed.
I'm with you. I'm like,
Appointed, not elected.
I would like to see us talk about it.
I think there's three of us.
It's a
that
fair
said we
point,
talk
and it's
about
on
it.
my mind. So, yeah, thank you.
Well, there's three of us that would like to talk about it. Does that mean it's on the agenda next month?
The rules state that it would be.
Yes,
Okay, perfect. Good to hear.
yes.
Anything else, Neil?
Neil?
No, that's it. Thank you all. You're
Okay.
wonderful.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned at 8:38.